Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Tom. How's it going, buddy?
Hello, friends.
It's just us tonight. There's the two of us. We're keeping it simple tonight. Tyler's got the week off, as per always. As a quick reminder, we'll be alternating between Tom and Tyler. Neither one of them can keep up with me, and that's fine. They are but mere mortals. And so I have to, we've organized this schedule for them. And that's nice. It's good for them. How you doing, Tom?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Good, man. Good. I'm excited. It's been a busy hobby time, as we'll talk about when we get there. But our main topic tonight is going to be getting started in AoS. You and I were talking, we thought, it's the new edition. We haven't really talked about all the armies and, what's actually good. How do you actually start? We kind of spliced it out through a couple of the other shows, but this will be a nice resource for people. And for those of you who are well deep into the game, don't worry, we're going to have lots of fun arguments later on about what armies are actually good to start with and what armies are not. So
that's true.
There's going to be lots of fun stuff to sink our teeth into here. But reminder up top, if you're excited about tonight's show, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. I'm trying to push the number. There's a milestone I'm looking forward to coming up in subscribers. I'm not going to say anything. See if people notice what it is. At any rate, I'm excited about it. And
Vince, I'm excited about it too.
Absolutely. And but anyways, if you give a like, it helps other people find the show. So let's get to the news. Tom, what's going on, buddy? What do we got? What's in the news? What are you reading for the first time that I wrote in there?
That rumor engine.
Yes. This is all right. I'm going to shut up.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Hit me. Drown me in your excitement, Tom.
It's Wraithfleet.
Okay.
So here's the deal.
I'm ready.
It looks like the bow of a ship.
It does.
But
Yep.
Where the water line is, it's not. So it's like it's flying.
Yep.
The front, figurehead, looks like it's a rib cage. Like death.
Yep. Sure.
And the prow blade has the design patterns that Lady Olander has on her model.
Okay. You're talking about this design stuff right here. This little
yes, the briars. Yes, the little swirly briars.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So basically, let me just make sure that I understand what we're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've given up on vampirates. We didn't get our wish, but now it's ghost pirates. That's what we're here now. That's what we're saying, right? It's ghost pirates.
It's ghost pirates.
Okay.
I mean,
Yep,
yeah, right? That's where Nighthaunt's going.
Ghost
and it's going to be Wraithfleet.
Confirmed. Yeah. Absolutely. There it is. I see no issue.
I see nothing else it could be.
It could be zero other things. It's definitely not some stupid 40k thing that's going to make me sad. It's definitely not just some other model. It is definitely Ghost Fleet. This is going to be Nighthaunt's relaunch at the beginning of the year. They're going to get their expansion models, which will be Ghost Fleet. Yes. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, because here's the deal. What I see them doing here is they are reimagining, our Coven Throne-esque, ghosty rap ships. I think that's where we're going.
No, I'm on board, Tom. I'm 1,000% on board with this. I agree with Josh A., who said, Ghost Ship, still not a hero. It won't be just a totem. Yeah. It'll just be a totem.
Yeah, it's going to make me cry.
Mm-hmm.
How in the War Scroll update did that thing not gain the hero keyword? Totem.
It got totem. Yes, that's look.
I know.
You
it's just
take
not
what
the same.
You get and you like it, Tom. That's what they're saying to you.
It's not the same.
I understand.
It should be able to take items. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I'll take it because I still run my black coach in every list that I build.
Sure.
So it's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. So that's the rumor engine. It's Ghost Pirates, folks. Strap in. It's Vampirates with a twist.
Oh, it's all. We're back. We're back where we were the end of last year. A year has passed. But so little has changed in the world, sadly, and now we've left behind. We're gonna have to make new merch that just says Ghost Pirates. Yes, all right. I'll see.
Ghost Pirates. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
Let's talk about Harrow Deep.
Yeah, man. I should have grabbed this map. I didn't. That was stupid of me.
Yeah.
I apologize, everyone. They put up a map for Ulgu, where Harrow Deep is in the center, the new place, which is underwater for the new setting for Underworlds, and it was really cool. And by the way, would be a perfect setting for a ghost fleet. I'm just saying. Like, it's full of spooky oceans and creepy coasts and
mist covered oceans. Yeah, checks out. I mean,
it's where I would expect to find ghost pirates. So
here's the other possibility that I don't want to actually articulate, but may be very real, which is this is one of the objective markers.
Sure.
Which is like a sunken boat, like the prow of a sunken boat.
Sure.
In the stupid Harrow Deep.
Yeah. Yep.
That's probably what it is. But I'm gonna imagine it's Ghost Pirates.
No, this is the time for positivity, Tom. We're staying positive. Yeah, I mean the map was super cool. I loved it. Glad to see a lot of, it's cool how they sort of spice little interesting things around the map for you to find, like little Skaven Clan Eshin mentions all over the place, hidden throughout. Yeah, just lots of fun stuff. Ulgu and Haish continue to be two of the realms that we have sort of the least understanding of.
I mean, Haish, we have a pretty clear picture, like it's the chaos symbol. But Ulgu, we definitely don't know, and yeah.
At a deeper level, there's just not as many like maps and stuff like that. When you look at sort of the main realms the story has been set in, Akshi and Gairan and Gur and places like that, we've got lots of maps and details, lots of different books, have information, background and stuff, because stories have been set there, right? And, even like the Soulbound books added a ton of detail to those realms. If you're a fan of Soulbound, the RPG from Cubicle 7, which I would highly recommend for everybody, by the way. And, but that gave us a lot of background. We haven't really seen much about Ulgu. I'm excited. If we're going into Shadow season, which I hope so, I hope this is setting up sort of the move away from Gur for next year. Yeah, exactly. Like, I would love to see the Underworld season lead into the changeover next year to give us Malarian, to give us redone Skaven. Like, the part of Skaven that needs redone arguably the most
is Eshin. Clearly.
Yeah, because they're the original monkey face rats from the 90s.
Yep.
Not that there isn't plenty of other stuff that needs to be redone. I mean, somebody in the comments is already like furiously typing the various scryer units or whatever that they want to see redone because they're $15 individual metal models. But there'd be a lot of cool stuff we could explore there, both old and new. Is my point. Right.
Yep.
And Ulgu would be a super cool season. So I dream of the day we get a full Skaven relaunch. So let's hope that's what this means. I will say that I'm sure Smorgan is going to be happy about the idea of redoing all of the Super Ninja Rats after he's painted like 180 Gutter and Night Runners. So
I just don't even have a response to that.
Yeah, he's in it to win it with the classic monkey rats.
Bold move.
So.
Yeah, and then the other rumor engine that the other news item rather that we had was Seraphon Battletone update next White Dwarf. So we're updating Battletomes and White Dwarfs now, apparently.
Many times, yes. This is the third one. So we had our Giants got their battalions and stuff. Slaves to Darkness got their stuff. And now it's Seraphon's turn. And I think that what this tells you is don't expect a book anytime soon, which, of course, I wouldn't. None of those three would have been in my votes for getting books anytime soon. They specifically called out that, like, a replacement allegiance ability for Primeval Domain. Okay.
Yeah, because the terrain really needed to be updated.
Right. Like, I play this army sometimes, and I own and play this army, and I literally couldn't remember exactly what Primeval Domain did because I cared that it's that irrelevant to the overall army. Like I love the way their brain works that they thought anybody
Right.
gave a flying crap about that ability. I mean, okay,
It's
sure.
shocking. It's shocking.
So, like but that's fine. Whatever. Neat enough, I guess. Sure, bring it in line. What you need to do with Seraphon is probably make some other changes, but that's okay. Um, so yep, cool, good. They'll get their completely,
Mhm.
um, their completely incorrect grand
Correction.
strategies, battle tomes, and core battalions.
Yep.
And I stand behind the fact that every TO should ban army specific versions of basically at least grand strategies and battle tactics and use only the ones out of the GHB. I stand behind that. We should not
I
allow
know
any of this nonsense in.
you feel very strongly about it. That's fine. You're allowed to.
I stand at the hot gates, my friend. I know I see the tide coming, but I will make this a movement. It's irrelevant, inappropriate, and unbalancing and unfun to add these sorts of things, and they shouldn't be there, and they make the game actively worse. TOs of the world, don't let them at your events. There you go. I'm putting my foot down. I'm making a call.
Uh, Vince feels very passionately about this. The argument for those that want to actually know the foundational logic for that is that they just add nothing to the game. Like the thing that unbalanced all the factions previously was battalions, and functionally they're back ending the same type of unbalancing aspect back into the game through this type of thing. And so where they leveled the field going into 3.0, they're very quickly just making the same mistakes they made before. So
Correct.
that's Vince's logic.
Yes.
Whether you agree with him or not, that's another that's another discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you can agree with me or be wrong. It's your choice. I don't care. You can do whichever one you want. It's fine. It's your choice. Free country.
So, well, there's a lot of countries.
Sure.
Okay, so I had another news item that's not on here.
Well, I have one as well. But go ahead. What's your other news
Okay,
item?
so I heard some birdies talking,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that we have another AoS campaign coming next summer, which is not too surprising.
Sure.
Um, but that it is going to focus on Malarian.
Okay.
And our dwarves may be involved in the
Okay.
mythical like group dwarf book that we've long kind of like suspected is coming, and that chaos dwarves may be involved as well.
Hey, oh, there we go.
So
It's
take that as you will.
it's pretty locked in that we're going to get chaos dwarves at some point, or whatever we'll call them in their
Mm-hmm.
reformed state.
Mm-hmm.
Between the Hobgrots making direct reference to them showing up
Yep.
in things like Wrath of the Everchosen as a
Yep.
feature of the overall story, and then them
Yep.
discontinuing all of the Forge World stuff. Like, it's only a matter of time before we get a full relaunch, as I said last week. So yeah, I it'll be great to see all those things in plastic and what that means for the new world. So,
And like, yeah, no, I agree.
is that your news item?
So that is my news item.
That's your rumor? Okay, cool. That's a
That's
good
my
rumor.
rumor.
I like
Yeah.
that rumor. Let's see what happens. I think they'll do the combined dwarfy thing too. And if it's done right, it should be like Auric Warclans,
Mm-hmm.
where they
Mm-hmm.
keep their individuality and you can
Mm-hmm.
rerun them as individual armies, but then also there's I don't know, whatever the big WoW equivalent is for dwarves. I don't know, the big grudge, I guess. Something
Yeah,
like that.
it's the grudge host.
The grudge host. Sure, there you go. Okay. My item is, hey, for those of you out there who are fans of Reign in Hell, the game that Uncle Adam and I launched, this week we launched our solo expansion. So if it can be played solo or co-op, it is a narrative campaign you can play through. It's 6 interlinked missions that tell a story, an ongoing story in the world in Reign in Hell. You can play through it, as I said, alone or with one of your friends as a cooperative partner. And it is available right now through the link that's down in the description, as well as through reignandhellthegame.com. You can find the link there, all the information for it. It is pay what you want, so that can include $0. The suggested is like $4, but this has been a rough year. If you don't want to pay any money for it, but you want to have a fun game, if you're not having people around for Reign in Hell, but you want to get your cabal on the table, hey, I totally understand. Go grab it now. So it's out there. Go check it out. Link is in the description. We're really excited about it. It was a lot of fun to actually write the sort of solo campaign, and to I will say, even when I was playtesting it and playing through it, I was having a lot of I was honestly having a lot of fun playing through the thing that I wrote, which is silly because I knew where it was going. But hey, there you go. So yeah, check it out. Links in the description. All right. Okay. So with that, let's go to our pick of the week, and I need to switch my thing over here so I can actually see the timestamp. There we go. All right. So time-stamped pick of the week. Tom, what's your pick of the week?
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned this channel on YouTube at some point in the past. It's been a while, though, so I want to draw people's attention to it. It's eBay Miniature Rescues. It is a wonderful kind of, guy gets on and talks about buying junk on eBay and turning it back into something functional for this. And he recently did a video called Speed Painting in an eBay Trash Army that I appreciated. And so I would encourage you to check it out.
Nice. Yeah, great channel. And super nice guy as well. Fantastic. My pick of the week. Well, first off, I want to shout out to Emil, to Squidmar, who sold his classic Thunderhawk for $35,000 on eBay. So good on him. A store in Australia is actually who bought that, by the way. They bought that and two others of the 500, because there was only 500 of these made at the time. And wow. So they now own 3 of them. That single store.
I mean, that's a bold move.
Yeah, so very cool stuff. That's not actually my pick, but I just wanted to shout him out. It was a heck of a project there. What I wanted to shout out was our good buddy Doug, 2+ Tough. If you couldn't get enough of our Auric War Clan coverage last week, and you're like, hey, I like all these rules, but what about the story? What about all the cool things, the lore of the orcs? Well, then you can head on over to our good friend 2+ Tough, because Doug is doing a whole lore series on the Auric War Clans this week. He's put up a couple videos already, and so he talks about Ironjaws and Cruel Boys and all of that stuff. I'll link the most recent video, but he's done multiple videos this week about it. So get into that get into the lore, and it's a super great series. Doug always knocks these things out of the park when sort of these battle tome lore stuff. So if you can't get enough hot green orc action, then Doug has you covered. All right. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I was over. Just need to look at the comments. Yes, the name of the expansion, by the way, for Reign in Hell is called the Oculus Spear. I should have said that, but I didn't. So that's the name of the solo expansion, the Oculus Spear. Let's see. Will we ever have a printed version of the Oculus Spear? No, it'll be PDF only. I mean, but you can certainly go print it at Kinko's or whatever. Does that still exist? I don't know. And then, yes, Josh said Steve tweeted this evening there was one spot still open for Havoc. That is possibly not true anymore. We'll see. We were trying to get it filled before the show started, so I think we might have.
I hope so.
And AoS List Lab said that it's his local store that is the one that got the
really?
Thunderhawk. Yeah, how cool is that?
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Oh my gosh.
So there you go.
I mean, what do you do with a $35,000 miniature?
You put it on display. It's a discussion piece. It's a memorabilia, at that point.
But $35,000? Like, that's an expensive display piece. That's
sure.
all I'm saying.
The trick is the purchaser was in Australia, right? So and they're bidding over in Swedish kronar or whatever. I think that's right.
Yeah, like not didgeridoos. Yeah.
Right. So honestly, that amount of money is more or less what you spend for an army in Australia anyway, so it's not that far off.
Yeah, they saw that and they're like, oh, normal Forge World prices.
Done. Right, yeah, it was basically a deal. So how could they say no?
I know, that checks out. That checks out.
There you go. Okay. David Kreitzberg. Tom, does developer equate to break the game before it's out guy? Yes. Yes, it is. That's what developers do. All right, let's turn to some hobby time.
I think he's asking me about Rain and Hell, I suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, because you were the developer for Rain and Hell. Yes. So if you find anything unbalanced or wrong, you can blame Tom. There we go. All right, let's do some hobby time. Tom, what'd you work on this week, buddy, if anything? You worked on Muppets? You're working on your Settler's Game. They don't know what this means.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I've done all this painting. Look at all that.
You've done a lot of painting, yes. Yeah, you're getting your army ready for Havoc in a month.
Look at all that plastic. All that plastic went together.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing real work, folks. Like real work. And I have to have like an army done in like a month.
You do. We have 5 weeks, effectively. A little more than.
Yes. Yep. And if I have to complete 10 models a week, or more, in order for this to be acceptable.
Sure.
Yeah.
We're both under the gun for Havoc. You've got 10 models a week. I have 4 models I need to finish. That's beyond what I'm currently working on. That sounds like a joke, okay?
Right, but it's not.
But it's not, because these models take forever.
Right, and you can't do your dragons.
I can't do dragons, so that's out. Right. Like it's
right. So let me tell the audience. So like Vince calls, he's like, "Hey, we need to talk about Havoc," and he's like, "So dragons are out."
Right, it's not gonna happen.
Which is like the heart of his army, right? Like that's what he wanted to do was Stormcast Rats on Dragons. And so I'm like, do I need to think of a new army in 4 weeks?
No.
Is that where we're going?
No, because fortunately I had been painting my Ratcast, like expecting that this was going to be a challenge. I had just been moving along, painting, and so I have my hobby time has been. I finished up another thing I can't share, but that'll be for the future. And then I hope everybody liked the fun Auric War Boss, by the way. That came out last weekend, and then now I'm working on my Lord Relictor, which I converted out of the Knight, like the Knight Arcanum or something silly. I don't know, whatever that new Knight was in there. I didn't like it, so I made a nice
that no one will ever play.
Right.
Yeah.
So I made a nice fun Lord Relictor out of it because I wanted a lady Relictor. Like I have lots of female Skaven Stormcast, and this is one of the female bodies.
I just have so many questions. Continue. Like, does she have 6? Never mind.
No, because it's, whatever. Don't worry about it. Anyways, and so I have to get this done, and then
they're reforged.
And then they're reforged, correct. And then I have 4 more figures beyond that, but she's in a pretty good place. Like I only have maybe another 4 or 5 hours on her, probably. But yeah, we had like Tom and I had to have an emergency hobby meeting about this because like seriously, the thought of me getting these 4 figures done is actually tough, and I have to. Then I was like, we still have to do bases for all of them, so we had to get together and find bases.
And then the question of the board.
And then the board. Yeah, we have to do our board, and I want to put together a nice booklet as well for the army, with all my background and everything around the warlord. So it's gonna be fun. We'll get there. We'll get there.
So we're gonna try to pull this together. Not making any promises, but we're gonna try to pull it together.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta paint my warlord too.
Yes, you do. You probably don't want to.
Oops.
You probably don't want to not show up with that. It's kind of important.
I know, but I'd forgot, like, I was all excited making progress on all this, and I was, like, trying to think the order that I need to get things done, and then I realized that I actually have the Warlord, and the way that I've modeled it is gonna make it take a lot of time. That's unfortunate.
It's fine. It's time to get in and do work. But that's what we do. Yes, as Jay Sefri said, do work, son. I agree. Do work, son. That's what we're here for. Never stop working. All right. So, but we did get together and sketch out the board. I'm gonna head to the hardware store, pick everything up I need, and Tom and I have a couple days set aside to get together and do a board build. So.
And all the printers of folks we know are a whirling.
just 3D printers going burr all around the world for everybody we can hit up for favors. Yes. Okay.
Yep.
I also got a game in with Stormcast this weekend, and it was super fun. I exploded one of those stupid foxes in LRL with the Thunderstrike chariot because he was foolish enough to let me charge it. Like we were playing Apex Predators. He had the fox on a point, and he didn't want to give it up. He could have left, but he didn't. So he let me charge it with the chariot. I impact hit the heck out of him just because I rolled like a 10, and then had a bunch of mortal wounds on him. And then he killed me with the Unleash Hell, and then I exploded on him and killed him from the Thunderstrike. It was
Take
great.
That stupid fox.
It was great. So
I hate those foxes.
As do I, and it was a very GLA male moment. Like, I really felt like we were just delivering. At any rate, okay. Well, with hobby time done, Tom, we're moving fast tonight, and that's fine. Let's get into it.
This is a classic show. We're gonna get done in an hour and a half or 2 hours.
There you go. Let's get into it. Getting started with AoS 3.0. I need to adjust this just a tad. Sorry. There we go. Moved a little. There we are. All right. So, I personally think, and I'm keen for your opinion, Tom, but I think this is a great, these edition changes, and especially right now, is actually, I think, a really strong time to start AoS.
Now is the time to get into AoS. If you're new to AoS, you've heard about it, you're checking us out for the first time, here's the deal. Now is the time to get into the game.
Yeah.
Because everything's still sorting out. Tons of different armies are available fairly cheap, both in the prior edition and those starters, as well as the new starters that are dropping. Just saying, it's now's the time, folks.
We're already seeing a lot of different armies being competitively viable across the board, being able to push for 4-1s. You know, going 5-0 is still largely skill dependent, as JP stats have shown. But you can push for 4-1 with a lot of different armies, which is fantastic. We're seeing the new books, and they seem to be trending into a, honestly, pretty friendly direction for newer players. So yes, the base game got a little more complicated, but the army books themselves, to me, read a lot more new player friendly. A lot more. It felt like they were removing a lot of the bad design of memory interactions where, bad mental baggage game design is when something says, do a thing, trigger, do a thing, time passes, thing pays off.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Do this in your hero phase, and during Battle Shock, this happens.
Correct. Yeah. Yes, exactly, right? And they're really cutting a lot of that. And I really feel that, this is a very strong time to start. If you were getting in with Stormcast, I think this is good. I think that there's, but that being said, there is still more complexity. So we're going to break into, where do we start? What do you cut? That kind of stuff. Okay?
So if you have a new player that you're wanting to introduce to the game, this show might be a good place for them to start.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's start with just some basic stuff, what you need to know about 3.0. Most of you will probably already know this, but that's okay. Core rules still free, available for download. You can also buy a book, but they're still free. It's about 30 pages now. There is more to it. I'm not going to lie and say it's as simple as it used to be. But it is also pretty clear. But we're going to talk in a moment about, like I said, I think when you're starting, the right answer is you don't try to play the full, match play thing. I think you cut stuff, or you get in through things like Path to Glory. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Oftentimes when I play with my kids, it's just War Scrolls.
Mm-hmm.
Like we focus on just getting the war scrolls right, and then we slowly add allegiance abilities and things like that.
Yep, that's exactly right. War scrolls are still free in the app. I have 4 now.
Right, right.
Like,
We don't know what's going to happen, but
like
right now
they
it's
are
free.
free right now. I don't know. Like this is the world we live in at the moment. I can only report on the news in the facts as they currently
Right, indeed,
exist.
indeed.
Uh, and like I hope this always remains true. This I am putting this out into the world because I want this to always remain true. This should never change.
Yep.
Eventually, some part of the app, probably the army builder, will become pay. They've been pretty clear about that. But it seems like they're saying the war scrolls will remain free, and I hope so. We'll see.
Totally.
If not, they will remain free because people will just start sharing them everywhere. So it's like you can either be the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. GW, you make the call. Okay? All right. So books you need. Here's my books. It's this simple, Tom. What books do you actually need? My argument would be General's Handbook. It's a good tool. Great deal of quality scenarios, good stuff. Multiple play types covered in there. All sorts of like the endless spells are in there. You know, it's good stuff.
Yep.
And then your army book.
Yeah, I agree. Like, so what's missing here, obviously, is the core rulebook, which just isn't needed.
Yeah,
like, if you have the General's Handbook. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But if you have the General's Handbook, if you have your army book, you have everything you need to play the game.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have the General's Handbook later. I'll talk about it a little. The core rulebook later.
Yep.
Because I do think there's value to it. It's not like a stupid book or something. Yeah. It's just you don't need it. It's honestly a luxury item, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then as I have a note here, and we'll talk about this in a little while as well, each book gets an FAQ. I put 4 weeks after the book release.
Well,
that's the goal.
Oftentimes.
We'll see.
Oftentimes 4 weeks.
Yes.
Sometimes.
We'll see. Okay. Now, complexity. Let's just meet this head on. Mm-hmm. This is the most complicated edition so far. The rules are about 30 pages. Our historical trend was 4
pages,
and then 12, and now 30. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. Ish. It's like 30. Like there's big art pieces and stuff in it, whatever. It's about 30 pages.
Yep.
The battle tomes are simpler. They seem to be trending simpler. We only have 2 examples, so who knows? That could be complete. That could just be complete oddities. We won't know that in the long run, but at the moment...
It could just be skewing starter armies, right?
Sure.
Because these are the starter armies, and so the starter armies could be simpler, and they could just keep the complexity on a lot of the other armies. We don't know, but it looks like the trend is towards simpler armies.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I hope that remains true. And, you know, I think that even though it's 30 pages, it's pretty clear. We'll talk about some other resources later on you can use to help navigate this complexity. Like I have a cheat sheet that I use with my friends who are, my group is full of very casual people. We follow the cheat sheet down the thing. No drama llama. It's super easy. Everybody just goes, here's my thing. Don't need to rally. Here's my, I get my command point. Here's my hero action I'm doing. What are you doing? Okay, great. I pick my battle tactic.
I stole one of those sheets for NashCon.
Yeah.
Like, I just took your sheet, took it to NashCon, and I was like, I sat there at the table, and I was like, step 1 this, step 2 this, step 3.
Yeah, because it's so easy.
Yeah.
And it's just, you, like, and there are some other ones available out there. I threw that one out there, the one that I made a little while back. But but there are definitely ways you can simplify out that complexity, right?
Yep.
Ken L says, can I get my Army's handbook for free, or do I have to purchase it? So your Army battle tome you have to purchase. And you basically have to buy the physical version of it. They don't sell digital versions of it. Why? I don't know. It's a good question. It's silly. You do get the digital version in the app then free when you buy your physical one. But whatever. Now, pause on everything I just said, Ken, because if you're playing an older army that has not yet gotten a new book, then at the moment, Ken, the actual answer is no. Okay? Here's what I
Right.
mean by that, Ken. I'm sorry this is kind of confusing, but we're in the middle of this changeover. The new Stormcast and Auric books, you have to buy the book. So if you're interested in either of those two armies, you got to go pick up the book. All the old armies that haven't gotten a new book yet, they're in the app, and everything is in there. It's all free at the moment. Again, I don't know, will it always be? I can't answer those questions. I have no visibility into that. But at the moment,
Yep.
you can just pop open the app and go, oh, I want to see about Soulblight Gravelords. And like you can go straight to Death Battle Tome, Soulblight Gravelords, there they are. Let me look at their command traits. Yep, okay, cool. That's what all that does. Got it. There's my choices. And all of the rules are there. Period. So for everything that's not that hasn't had a new book in 3.0, which is everything except Stormcast and Oryx, yes, technically all the rules are free.
For now.
For now.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I suspect that once the digital subscription stuff fully kicks in for AOS, all of that will be in as part of the subscription.
Yeah, it's hard to say. The War Scrolls might be the only thing that ends up like
we
that.
Just do.
But we
just
don't
know that. Yeah. Yep.
So, Chapstick said, yeah, it's a good point. Also, Battlescribe does have the faction rules in there too. That's a great point. Yeah. I don't mention that in digital tools, but it is a good reference point. Okay. So, there we go. That's kind of the books. That's just some basics, just to get that out of the way.
Right.
Lay down them basics. All right. So how do we actually start? So my answer is there's a couple different versions, right? A couple different versions of how we start. Because again, we have the complexity problem. I just left that on the bottom to remind us of the challenge here.
Right.
To me, there are two options for how you get in. Okay?
Yep.
Option one is you cut rules, like you mentioned with your kids, right? Where you just play with War Scrolls.
Yep.
So don't feel like you have to start at 2,000 points just because everybody else is doing it. You can cut out things like grand strategies, battle tactics, battalions. All that stuff can be cut.
Right.
It doesn't have to be there. Like, you don't need that to play the game. The game's functional without those elements. It's fine. Basically, you can feel free to cut anything you like. As you're learning, there's no need to have anything you and your group don't like, right? So if you don't want the heroic actions, the monstrous actions and stuff like that, fine, cut them. You know, like, it doesn't matter. But at minimum, when I showed my group 3.0 the first game, we didn't use grand strategies, we didn't use battle tactics, we didn't use any battalions. I just had them build a quick army, use their allegiance abilities like normal, and play. Now, they had already played games before, right? But this is their first thing with 3.0. And then we introduced the rest of that stuff.
Yep.
You can go down to what you're talking about, Tom, which is like you could literally just use the War Scrolls, right? Just War Scroll Builder, build out the War Scrolls, done. Yep. And you just play with that, right?
Yep.
And you can build into the rules.
Right.
That's option
You
one.
play a game or two with that, and then you add in stratagems or grand army strategies or whatever, and you can just slowly kind of pile the layers on.
Yep. Yeah. The other good option is Path to Glory. I think Path to Glory is an excellent entrance point. It is a very different sort of feel.
Can you say that? Can you say that louder into the mic, please?
I think Path to Glory is an excellent entrance point, and I think a lot of people really love Path to Glory. So much so, we're going to do a whole show on it next week, or 2 weeks.
That's right.
Something like 2 weeks.
That's right, folks.
2 weeks.
Vince, the one who has cursed Path to Glory for the last 5 years.
Stop hitting the table.
Sorry. Will now, he's a seller. So we'll see.
I've never cursed Path to Glory's existence. I've cursed Path to Glory's placement, which I still do. I don't want it in the middle of my match play rules. Like, it should be in its own section. That's all I've ever said, and I stand behind that. Okay? But yeah, in 2 weeks, we're going to do a whole Path to Glory show. Tom and I will be back. We're bringing on a Path to Glory expert to take us into the world. But it's a great way to start, because you really end up needing not that much. It ends up being a couple 100 points, basically, is how you're starting out in Path to Glory. And then you just kind of get to experience a fun narrative evolution of your force, add to your force pretty organically. It's much more friendly to new painting, because you don't have to just be like buried in plastic and then try to paint your way out from under this mountain.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You're just doing a couple units, and then every so often you add another unit. Great. Easy. Right? Mr. Yes Meatball says GW's own information could really do with a well-circulated primer, like play with scrolls, then add battalions, then add battle tactics. Completely agree. I completely agree. You know, they had something like that. They kind of shipped out in second ed at one point when we talked about this in 2.0. And I completely agree that they should have this sort of like on-ramp starter track PDF that they just published that's linked on the side of their website in the same area where the like how to take photographs of miniatures is, right? They have like a resources section on the side. They could also just have it under downloads. They could put it in multiple places. And they should just have a like here's how we would recommend you get started. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. It would make the world so much easier for people to actually buy their products and play their game, because there is a barrier of entry here. Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? All right. Oh, Sporadicus asked an interesting question there. How would you approach a situation with someone who has played before but absolutely hates the double turn because their insanely bad luck has caused them to have only negative experiences? I would not. Yeah, go. You tell them first. You go. I'm interested.
So here's my recommendation. In that situation, you teach them to always assume they are going to lose the double turn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you teach them to play as if they're always going to lose the double turn. And then when they don't, like if they do play that way, if they do play that way, then they're fine, right? Because they're not overextended. If they don't, and they win the double turn, they can choose to give it away, right? Or they can, take advantage of the situation if they're forced to take the alternating turn.
Mm-hmm. That's a good piece of advice. I like that. And i.e., teach them how you account for it. Here's my advice. Yeah. You're the experienced player in this case, Sporadicus, I assume. So you let them double turn you every time it's a possibility. That's my advice. You play a game where you yourself get double turned every time. Period. Yeah. Because you can always force it.
Right. Like if you win the roll, you just give it back to them.
Correct.
And let them keep double turning you.
Correct.
Yeah.
And know that you're going to play like that, because you're the experienced player. And account for it in your play style and win. Beat them.
And win with them continuing to have the double turn. Yeah. No, that's good. Yep.
Okay.
Because they're going to take the double if they get it. And so you just keep handing it back to them.
Right. You give it to them and then win.
Yeah.
And show that it's not like it can be played around, right? It's a question of skill, not that you have to account for. And it's what makes the game, it's what keeps the game suspenseful, as it were. So that would be how I'd do it. I would give it to them every time, and then you show them how to handle being double turned. That would be my solution. Because I think it's one of the great mechanics of this game. It's one of the things that makes the whole engine run. So
right, agreed.
Yep. And so very good. He said he'll take that advice and run with it. Yes. No matter how bad his luck is, it won't matter if you're giving it to him, because if you win every roll, you can just be like, okay, it's your turn, go. It either preserves you go, I go, right? Or it gives him the double. That's the choices. You can never result in if one player approaches the table with that conception, it cannot have, there's no other choices.
You will never have a double turn. You will never achieve a double turn. That's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And as time goes on, you'll learn to navigate it. I don't ever really, I don't love it when my opponent wins the double, but it's never a loss moment for me. So,
but sometimes you have to gamble on the double.
Sure. Right? Sometimes you risk it for the biscuit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Purchases and resources. All right, let's talk about this. So books, purchase stuff, books. Yep. I have here the core rulebook. If you want, rules are free. But the background information and art is pretty cool. So I'd call that not a need. Again, we're just talking about stuff that's out there. Options.
Yeah, that's luxury. Yeah.
Luxury. right? Core rulebook. I think it's very pretty. I like owning it. It's definitely not a must-have purchase. Does that sound fair?
Yep.
All right. General's Handbook. There's a new
That's
one
a
every
must.
year. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Is this to you an essential purchase, Tom?
It is. It has all the everything that you need. It has your scenario, like a diversity of scenarios. It has yeah, I mean it is essential in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. Chris Schulte, by the way, said, I run a small game club, and one of the things I do is get 2 of the starting box sets, Dominion, and 2 players play the same list, and I referee the game. I like that a lot. If you've got a couple people, I love the idea of having a referee where you're kind of a neutral party walking them through there. That's a super cool idea, right. Chris. That's great.
That is good.
That is a super fun idea. And that's being a real ambassador for the game. Right. You know, like if you have a game you love, bringing people through it in that way. This isn't Warhammer specific. You can do that for any game.
Helping them learn how to play.
Yeah, it's great that way. Where you're just kind of standing back and you're not involved, and you're just like, nope, let me help you. Okay, you guys go, and then you can stand back and let them go. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep, that's good.
And then I have here your Army Battle Tome. Okay. Again, as previously mentioned, the old ones are free in the app for right now. The new ones you do have to purchase. Now, Tom, where do you place supplement books in this stuff? The options, because there are some supplement books that are different. So, like the Broken Realms books. It is let's talk about, maybe like Wrath of the Everchosen, that kind of stuff. Is that, are those essential purchases, or are those,
for
something...
who? For me or for most people?
Well, that's the question. Break that
down. For a majority of players, they're just not essential unless they're touching your army, right? Mm-hmm. Like I bought Wrath of the Everchosen and left it on my shelf for like months before I cracked it. Just because it didn't touch any of the armies that I was using. And I didn't have an event like coming up immediately. Mm-hmm. That said, like I buy everything because we spend time on the show reviewing everything.
Sure.
And so like I want to have it in front of me, and in general, because I go to competitive events, like I follow the G.I. Joe mantra of like knowing's half the battle. Yeah. The reality is knowing is like 80% of the battle. You need to know what to be really competitive at the highest levels. You just need to knowledge is the key. And so like I buy all the books with all the rule stuff just so that I can stay up to speed. But again, that's not most people.
Yeah. So those
talk about your club.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my group, most of the time, everybody's pretty cash. These people don't run out and get all of those books. Okay.
Right.
They mostly just play out of their army book. Oftentimes, somebody in our group will just get one of the books. Usually that someone is me. And then I'll say, hey, here's a thing if you want to check it out. And I let them, use it or borrow it, which is another good thing. Like, to me, those kinds of expansion books can be a shared amongst a group thing if you even really have to have them. Because they often have information for multiple armies in there. They're often not essential to your army. Like, that is to say, it's not as though everybody that has something in one of those books, you have to have it to build every list. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But they can be fun. So to me, they're expansion purchases, either by your club, your group, your friends, when you're ready for them, or there's something you eventually get yourself into when you've got your legs under you with your army, because there's none of them that are really essential that I can think of where it's like you have to have this stuff to really have everything. Probably the closest one I can think of where there's like some real value of what has to happen there. No, I mean, because they're both in the app now. I was going to say maybe IDK or Nurgle, but all those updated War Scrolls got pushed to the app, so that's all that new stuff's in there for free.
Right.
Yeah, there's some it's not that there's not some fun options in those though.
Night Haunt
because of the actual Well, that stuff's in the app too. The sub-factions in the app too.
Well, are the Broken Realms? Are they?
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, those little things are all in the app right now, so it's hard to say that. Again, they're on the edge. I don't think you absolutely have to have them, especially when you're starting. It's not like when you day one when you're starting the army, you have to have this thing, right?
Right. Yep.
It's especially when you're dealing with lots of new players. You don't need those things. And anybody who's taking like an absolute backbreaker tourney list against somebody who's new is a jerk. Like,
right, they deserve to burn in a special place.
Yeah, like that's just not cool. When you're playing newer people, you should be taking fun lists, and because they don't know what they're doing with their stuff, right?
Right.
So, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like that's why they shouldn't need it, because your group should be accommodating to a new player.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Okay. But as I said, if you want to expand into them, they're not a bad purchase. If they have something for your army in there, sure, they're fun. And again, they're full of cool art and a good story. Like if you want to learn what was happening in the story and the narrative, and you're into that,
yeah, totally.
Then you're good. Go grab them. Like it's fun. I liked them. I read them. I thought they were fun. I enjoy the stories because I enjoy the world. As you get into it, if you too enjoy that stuff, then hey, they're a perfectly valid purchase. Okay. All right. But again, purchase it, look in the app, go on to, Wahapedia or go on to Battlescribe. There are ways. All right, let's talk about downloads and resources, so digital places.
Sure.
I think one of the important things is understanding the FAQ for armies and core rules, right? Like that you're going to have an FAQ document. These things are not always pushed efficiently out there.
Right.
That's
print it off and stick it in your book.
It's a problem. This is a problem. Like there's no other way to say this, right? These should be updates that when they publish the FAQs, they should be digitally pushed out to a digital resource we're all using for rules. It's not the world we live in, and it sucks.
Well, I mean, it is the world for some games, just not AoS.
Yeah, which is like that is a straight negative.
Yeah, it's a miss.
Right. Like you have to go get these FAQs, print them or internalize them or whatever, and then just remember them, I guess. Like that's what it is. Because they don't generally push all of those updates out.
Right.
Should.
Right.
They don't. But the FAQs are out there on the website. The Warhammer AoS app, it's free right now. True value.
Take advantage of it.
TBD, right? Like, again, this is such a giant question mark, but I don't know how else to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Like, I like it right now for using the War Scrolls. I've used it a lot. I used it in my games. It was fine. It was perfectly serviceable. I looked stuff up. It was all there. There we go. Yeah, the FAQs are in there. Anthony, he said the FAQs are in the app. The problem is they should just integrate everything in. They don't always change all the wording, especially not in a timely fashion. So,
right.
Okay. All right.
Resources. There's some good resources out there.
There is, yeah. So I mentioned here War Scroll Builder by our Lord and Savior Tony P. It's on the main community site.
Magical.
It is. It's what I use to build every list I've ever built, and it is updated now with the Stormcast and Auric stuff. So, which is great. War Scroll Builder makes building your armies easy, fast, fun. There you go. Oh, good. Robert says they did update the scrolls with the FAQ wordings. Oh, that's cool. That's good. I didn't know they pushed that through. That's fantastic. Good. Okay. Good stuff. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me happy.
More of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay, then I take back that part that I said. That's great. I hope they keep doing that in a timely way. There you go. Well, wonderful. That's very good. I take back what I said then. I didn't know they had pushed that out. That's very good then. I'm happy to hear that. And AoS Reminders, another great resource. You can just put in your army, upload your list directly from War Scroll Builder, I would point out. and it actually shows you everything that you need to remember about your army, like when to do what in each phase. It's great. Is War Scroll Builder the GW app? No, it's not the app. War Scroll Builder is on the community site.
It's on the GW community site.
Right. If you just go straight to the GW community site, there is a thing that says like lists and army building tools up top. Click on that, and right there it is, War Scroll Builder. It is super simple, easy, fantastic. Like, I cannot rep War Scroll Builder enough. It is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic tool. And it is very, very, very quickly updated. Like, amazingly quickly updated. So, it's wonderful.
It is a wonderful resource.
Yes. Tony P is a great human being. He's the person who maintains it in the community. So, and he does a wonderful job. Any other resources out there? Like we mentioned Battlescribe a couple times. I didn't have it on here, but it is worth mentioning.
AoS reminders you have there. It's a wonderful resource that, especially for the armies that are more complex, that have more things going on in all the phases. It is a kind of an automated thing. I've found AoS reminders sometimes can be burdensome for some of those armies because it'll like print out like 7 pages, and if I'm playing an army, I want all of my reminders on a single page. Mm-hmm. That's just one of my rules for my own kind of organization. And so what I would say is that whether you use AoS reminders, or my advice would be to do AoS reminders and then you like take what's there and use that to simplify to make your own sheet.
Yep. I would also point out another one I don't have here, but I will include in the description, is the the Austin Weird Boys cheat sheet. The gold standard of AoS 3.0 cheat sheets makes all this stuff of remembering things so easy. It's a front and back of a page. You've got a 2-sided printer, front and back of the page. You know, completely makes choosing your battle tactics and all this stuff so much simpler because it just has all the wording. You can flip through, you follow it down.
Yep.
Easy. Like the Austin Weird Boys put this cheat sheet together. I'll link it down there so everybody can use it. You can also just Google Austin Weird Boys cheat sheet, but I'll get it down there. Fantastic cheat sheet. Would recommend 10 out of 10. Great work, guys. Beautiful. It even looks pretty, so it's really nice. So there you go. That's another good resource out there. We were talking about cheat sheets earlier. I made my own because I'm a jerk like that, and I wanted it super condensed. Yeah. So there you go. All right. Cool. Any other resources we should share there, Tom? Anything else you can think of? Anything else you reference?
No. I mean, I think that's it. I mean, the other resource that I create is, I like cards. And so one easy way to do this is like, there's a magic card creator. Like there's a bunch of different apps and resources and web pages that do this, but like make printable magic cards. And you can do that for your spell lists. So that you can print off, like you can just like type in your spells into this, like these like resources, and print spells, right?
Yep.
So that you can, like, when you're done, when you've attempted a spell, whether you've cast it or not, you can turn it face down and then have in your hand how many additional spells you still have. It's really helpful against like spell heavy armies like Lumineth or Tzeentch, stuff like that.
Yeah. It's very useful, especially if you have a spell heavy army, to just make yourself little spell cards. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Coach gave a shout out for terrain dice or tokens and stuff like that.
Yep.
I'm going to give my shout out. Okay. This is no slam against Pro Painted, who makes wonderful little plastic tokens that are really nice and are like army specific and all that.
Yep.
But my honest answer is they're too expensive for what they do. Okay. Here's what you do. You go onto Amazon or eBay.
Yep.
And you search for fridge magnets that are 2.5 inches by 1 inch or something like that. 2 inches by 1 inch. You can get them in packs of like 200. They're these tiny little magnets. They're like this big. They're little magnet sheets. Okay. They're very, very small. Like 1 inch by 2 inch or something like that. Find small ones. You get yourself a pack of those from they're dry erase. Sorry, they're dry erase fridge magnets. That's what they are. You're searching for little dry erase fridge magnets, 1 inch by 2 inch. And I'll see if I can find what I bought, and I'll throw a link down there.
I'm already looking for them.
Yeah, if I can find a link, I'll put it in there.
Yep.
And then you get yourself a nice set of ultrafine tip Sharpies.
What size did you say?
1 inch by 2 inch, or something in that range, something pretty close to that.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you get yourself some ultrafine, a little pack of ultrafine Sharpies, and you're done. For less than $20, you now have every token you could ever want, ever, because when someone's gets a random buff or debuff, I just take one of my little magnets, I write down +1 to wound, -1 to hit, has finest hour on, whatever. I make myself a little thing on that magnet sheet, and then I just set it next to the unit. Easy. Easy as punch. I do not forget buffs because I write them down. It's that easy. It's like, I cannot recommend this enough. It is cheap as, and there you go. So yes, that's my recommendation. And you get a pack of like 200 of those little magnets for like $10. So you'll have all of them you ever need. Oh yeah, sorry. I guess right. I did say Sharpies. Ultrafine dry erase markers. I'm sorry, not Sharpies. Thank you.
Here's 36 for $14 on Prime.
There you go. Those might be bigger, but okay.
No, these are 2x1.
Okay, cool. There you go. I got a bigger pack, but all right, neat. So anyways,
they may be out there.
Sure, but that's the key. I highly recommend that. Save yourself the headache. Don't say like, oh, this unit has blessed weapons, which is like double tap on 6, right? And try to remember that. No, when I cast blessed weapons on a unit, I write down bless weapons, and then I slide it right next to the unit, and then I never forget.
Right.
So there you go.
And another easy option there is getting like terrain dice. So just getting dice, whether you buy some of the pre-made ones, or you can just buy dice and like blank dice. And
you can buy like blank. Yeah, you can buy blank dice cubes and just use stickers. Yep.
Yes, which is what you did, and that works just great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you just write on the dice face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different resources. I hope that stuff all helps. I'll throw links in the description for people.
Somebody asked about having extra 3-inch and 9-inch sticks. That's definitely helpful for combat gauges and for dropping.
Here's a fun way to get 3 and 9-inch sticks. Everybody ready? I'm gonna give you the cheap option here. Vince is I am one of the cheapest people you'll ever beat. So
it's true.
Here's what I do. I went on to Amazon or to go to the dollar store, and you find yourself some cheap wooden 12-inch rulers. Now make sure they're the rulers that don't have extra crap on the sides. That are
you don't want the metal edge.
Long. Yeah.
Yes, you want the 12-inch ruler that's no metal edge.
So you want these like as cheap as possible. Okay? Yep. Which will be the ones that are basically just little cheap wood. You buy your 12-inch rulers. Then you take yourself a little hand saw or something like that. You know? Something like this guy right here. Okay? You go down to the 9-inch line, and you saw that bad boy right in 2. What do you get when you saw a 12-inch ruler on the 9-inch line? Why, you get a 9-inch stick and a 3-inch stick. Magic. Weird. And you can buy packs of those rulers, again, super cheap. So you just find those little cheap wooden rulers. So there you go. Easy. How do those fridge magnets interact with magnetized for transport models? You just keep them a little farther away. They're very weak magnets, the little dry erase magnets. They're not going to stick to your people. Though
they're
you
not
could.
Going to move models.
No, they won't move models. Though if you had a big model that had a little magnet by the back corner of his base, you could just like slide it partially under there and it'll stick to the magnet, and then it will actually move with him. I have done this with big models before.
You can attach it to the rim.
Yeah, you can attach it to the rim. I have done that before, so it goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Final Flash 17, I swear to God Almighty, get out of here with that nonsense. I swear. I swear. If you think the little cardboard things or whatever you're buying are like that micro accurate, also this game is about figs on a table that you're moving with your eyeballs and human hands. I assure you, you are wrong by more than that very often. And if you're not, you're terrible to play against because you're measuring that precisely. Okay. So, there you go. But yes, technically you lose a little bit in there. All right.
Yeah, that's why you play by intent.
Yeah, of course, as always. All right. Oh, that's very awesome. Manzak said, I believe some free paint stirs have rulers on them too, depending on the store. Nice. Ooh. Even better. Now we're down to free. I like where that's at. I might have to, when I go to the hardware store, I'm going to be checking out my free paint stirs.
He's going to be like, some more. He's going to go down there and like take a measure, like a tape measure from the ends, like the end cap. He's gonna like let me borrow this. Yeah. And measuring those paint sticks. I can see it now, Vince.
I would absolutely do that. Look, you got to be frugal in life. That's all I'm saying, right? I'm all about being as cheap as possible. Tom knows me. I am a very cheap person.
So true.
Okay. I do not waste money. All right, cool. So there you go. Fun stuff. Mr. Yes Meatballs, you heard it here first, Vince. Vince cheats with 8.9 inch and 2.9 inch sticks. Boy, if I do, I'm cheating against me. That is the wrong way to go. All right, now let's get into the fun part of this discussion. Everybody, strap on your debate boots. Here we go. The best armies, the best and worst armies for new players. All right. I'm time-stamping this. Okay. All right. Tom, this is my list. We're going to go through these and then discuss them. Yeah, I shared the list with you, so you had it in advance, so you know what I'm doing here. But this is my list. Your list out there, audience, may differ. If you disagree with me, put it in the chat why you think I'm wrong, okay, as we discuss them. Or if you think somebody that I didn't mention should be in here, defend those people. That's fine. This is my word is not dictum here. This is just my take on it.
Yeah.
All right. So before I talk about this, I want to say just a quick overview. To me, a good army for a new player has a couple of factors. So the way I evaluate it is on cost. Okay. Like, i.e., how expensive is it to collect it? What are my collecting options? How many different methods do I have over there? Access to secondhand market. How easy would it be to find it in even 3D prints? Right? So that's all kind of broadly lumped under collecting options and cost.
Sure.
Yeah?
Sure.
Okay. Option 1. Dimension 1. Dimension 2 is paint. How easy is it for a new person to paint? Right?
Yep. Is it all like one substance? Can it be done a lot with bases and dry brushes and stuff like that? Yep.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Is it new painter friendly? Right?
Yep.
And then are the rules to actually play the stupid army, right, comprehensible, friendly to a new player? In other words, is it an army that has a very high skill floor and relies on a lot of techie BS to win? Okay? Or is it a pretty simple, straightforward experience that tends to live within the core expectations of the game? Fair?
Yeah.
To me, those are kind of the XYZ dimensions.
Yep.
Fair enough?
Yep.
All right. Using those dimensions and understanding that they're all weighted differently, right? Like, you can be not great on one of them and still be on this list of, like, good for new players, right? It's...
Yep.
Like, if we were to sort of make a 1 through 10 for everything and then assign weighting to them, it's not like everybody has to be a 10 in all 3 categories to be in this list. Yeah? Okay. Stormcast. This one seems like the easiest slam dunk in the world to me, Tom.
Yeah, it's metal. Like it's just a bunch of base coated metal painted details for the models themselves, and it just pushes around. As we said 2 weeks ago, it's the fighter class of AoS.
Exactly. Simple rules. New book is very new player friendly. Easy paint. Like, really, the new models paint so fast. So very fast. There's also a million tutorials for these guys online, by the way. It's like, just if you're thinking about trying to learn, there's just like a million people who have painted Stormcast online. Right?
Yep.
IT says, does AOS have an equivalent of Necrons for ease of painting? And I'm saying it's probably Stormcast, honestly. Because the advantage to Necrons is that they're almost all metal, and then you're just doing a couple details of like the gun and eyes and stuff, you know?
Arguably, I think Nighthaunt would be the most equivalent.
That's another
because like Nighthaunt, you could literally just paint them as fully translucent.
Sure.
So like white with the green, and then dry brush with white again, and you're done. Like with the whole army, like you could just say that even their weapons are translucent. Sure. You know, that they're all just ghostly. And so that would be the most equivalent to Necrons. But I agree, Stormcast would be fairly quick.
Yeah. I think they're actually one of the absolute best. The good collecting options I have here, I mean, there are so many ways to get your hands on Stormcast.
Yep.
They've been in every starter set. They're secondhand all over the place. You know, they're very easy to get a hold of. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Seems like that one feels no drama llama to me.
Right.
Oryx. Also on this list. Good collecting options again. There's lots of Oryx out there. They still have some decent start collecting, by the way, action. They had at various times done special box sets you might be able to find versions of, like, and they're also a fairly elite army in some of the builds. Like if you're in Ironjaws, even Cruel Boys, you don't have that many of them on the table. Basically outside of Bone Splitters, and let's be honest, who's playing Bone Splitters? So, you know, but sure, not even him anymore. If you watched the show last week, I think we broke him. But you know, they're fairly elite. You don't need a lot of them. As I showed, you can paint an army of Ironjaws, for example, to a quite high standard in in a week. That's what I did for when I did Tyler's army. They're fairly easy paints. Again, they take stuff like dry brushing and contrast paints really, really, really well. Just like you think of stuff like the Cruel Boys at first seemed really complex to me, honestly, when I first looked at them. I painted a couple of them, and I was like, oh, no, these guys are easy. Because they're all rough textures and stuff.
Right.
And they just take contrast so well.
Right. They lend themselves to that type of painting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So to me, it's like Oryx. I'm bringing them in because Ironjaws and Cruel Boys.
Right.
Bone Splitters. I'm kind of just moving you off to the side. I apologize. It's a different sort of army. If you like, I mean, the advantage to Bone Splitters, you do build the whole army out of like one box.
Right, and which is in then the start collecting.
Yeah. But like
just a double helping.
And their rules are certainly simple, I guess. So I'll leave them to the side. They're a controversial topic. That's like I don't want to poke at a wound anymore.
Sure.
All right.
So you said Ogre Maw tribes. Sell me on this, because to me, like, it seems I agree with the start collecting.
Yep. They have a great start collecting.
I agree with that completely.
Okay.
Yep. Which is, to me, really important. It's one of the most important elements for good starting armies.
Gregory Richards, you're the man. I love that. He said, just get into AOS, starting with Ironjaws. You've made the right choice. This is the appropriate army. At any rate, okay, so they have a great start collecting. There are lots of classic models available secondhand. So old ogres haven't changed in a while, but they're still relatively good sculpts. So kind of no matter what side you want to get, you can tend to get ogres pretty easy on the secondhand market. They're not that, even so, they're not that expensive. Like, you don't need a ton of them if you're using the non-BCR side. Name currently eluding my brain. And I actually think they're a good simple paint if you're starting.
Mm-hmm.
People I think are scared of them. I saw Manzak asked earlier, are they really on there because they have a lot of skin?
Right.
And
Right.
my
That
argument,
was the one. That was my question.
yeah, so first of all, the big monsters, the big monster trucks, this is not even, that's super easy, right? Because you only need like 4 or 5 of them, and
Yep.
they're all dry
And
brushing.
you can dry brush, right?
Yeah, and
no, but I know what you're going to say regarding the skin. It's because the musculature is so well defined on the ogres that that they're easy to paint.
Exactly. Seriously, if
Yep.
you use the most basic GW method you learn, paint a base coat, give it a wash, put on 1 layer of highlight back up, you can make
Yep.
ogres look awesome. They're
Yep.
because they're big,
But
you're not, and
their
their muscle
bodies are
structure
made-
is so defined.
Their bodies are made for contrast paints.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, like, yes, I agree, skin is often hard for people when they start out. What I'm saying is ogres defy that by having this almost cartoonish musculature that just takes to all of the sort of GW, I'm a newbie, I don't really know what I'm doing painting methods. Like, I'm just going to turn its skin color and then slap a wash on there and then do 1 layer of highlights, right? Like, that is how you learn when you first start, right?
Yep, that's true.
And ogres will just look pretty good when you do that. I've seen a lot of ogre armies where that's what people did, and they looked fine. Right?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So between the BCR side being like super easy, and then that side still being fun. By the way, those models are simple. Like, yes, they have skin on the upper body, but they're very simple. It's like they have skin, and then pants, a belt, and boots, and then a little plate on their tummies. You know, they're not full of bejangles and nonsense. Right? And I actually think that's what drives, like, that's what screws you up when things are overtly detailed and complicated as models. Especially when you start painting and you're dealing with this tiny scale. Ogres are so big, right? I mean, look at our boy Larry the Ogre here. Here he is. Look at him. He's just skin, pants, belt. That's this model, right? There's a reason I've used this dude in so many tutorials, because he shows everything really well, because his skin is his musculature and his skin is cartoonishly huge, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, that's my ogres. And as far as their rules go, by the way, pretty simple rules. Pretty direct playstyle.
You punch things.
You punch things, right? Like, like run your monster trucks into people or throw a wave of meat at people. How would you advise a newbie to build BCR if they are overwhelmed by the options for the monster trucks? Like a Frostlord on Stonehorn, a Frostlord on Stonehorn, and then maybe like a Huskard on Thundertusk, or something on Thundertusk, and then Beast Riders, I think, if that all fits. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to build the thing in front of me. But, you know, Beast Riders to fill your battle line.
Right.
And then at least 1 Frostlord on Stonehorn. At that point, you should have a pretty fair-sized army, and then just figure stuff out from there. Pick your last 2 things, I guess. A hunter and some cats. I don't know. Like, whatever. There you go. Because hunters and cats are fun.
They are fun.
Brian S. said, that's what I aspire to be. Skin, pants, belt. Exactly. You don't need anything more. It's simple. Okay. Autumn Lotus said, speaking of, Heed Knights are hard as heck for newbies. Oh, I agree. We'll get to Autumn. I agree. We will definitely get to the.
We'll get there.
We'll get to the bad boys.
Yeah.
Yes, I was gonna say, if you want more details on building BCR lists, just hit up Heywo. Join any of his streams. Ask him for a list. I'm sure he could give you 10 of them off the top of his head.
Yep.
Flesh Eater Courts, Tom. What do you think about my Flesh Eater Courts pick?
They're one of my favorite starter armies.
Agreed.
Because you can say, go buy 4 getting started boxes and you're done. And then for good measure, you can buy the Arch Regent and the terrain piece. And then you're really done. My son is aspiring to do Flesh Eater Courts, and I was like, cool. This will be easy. You just need to buy this thing multiple times. And so for him, like, he can buy it and build up and paint and then buy another one and he's ready, and he already knows how to build all that because you're using a lot of the same kits. And a lot of it is, especially if you're just, you don't really care, you're not too strongly on like flesh, you can do almost all that with a base coat and dry brush, and then just paint nails and teeth.
Yep.
Like it is one of those that is super easy to paint.
And again, rules here seem very straightforward to me. The FEC book is quite sensible, quite easy to navigate and play. It's also, by the way, like a super awesome backstory. I know that wasn't one of my dimensions, but they have like a really cool story. I don't know. It's neat, right? So it's part of it. I mean, it's part of it. It's just a really awesome story.
Ghouls.
Yeah. It is, to me, the paint also lets you play with stuff you really especially enjoy as a new player. Like, you get to mess with blood effects and dirt and grime and things, right? And so if you mess things up, it's like, who cares? Just throw some blood spatter on it and call it a day, you know?
Yep.
You're good.
Yep. True.
So, you know, there's... And if you don't like the basic ghouls, there are lots of 3D prints out there. That's what I used for a huge portion of my ghouls. I did 60 ghouls. 40 of them were 3D prints. 20 were the traditional ghouls. So, Clay Beast Creations, if you want to see some cool undead alternatives in the 3D printer world. Clay Beast Creations.
I'm going to look at them right now.
They're really good. They're super good. Dude does some awesome work. I think he's watched the show before at one point in time. So, if you're out there or you watch this, Clay Beast, shout out. You do great stuff. So, so there you go. You can so that would be my alternative if you don't like the basic ghouls, because he has fantastic replacement ghouls. Flesh Eater just feels like a slam dunk, right? Rules, paint, easy to purchase, good to go. All right, Tom. Next up, your favorite. I'm gonna let you talk about this one. To me, this is the only Chaos God that makes the good list.
It's funny because even like you put it on here, and I don't know that I would put Nurgle on here as a good.
Tell me your pros and cons of Nurgle.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it doesn't have an easy collecting.
Like, keep in mind, the old star collecting demons that used to be pretty worthless is actually pretty good now. Because it's full of like flies and plague bearers, which are both good.
Right, but then you still need to buy like a Guo. You still need to buy a Slobbity Bile Piper. You still need to so. Yes, you can get the core of some of your army.
Sure.
So you'll do because
they have 2 star collecting, a demon one and a Rotbringer one.
Right. So let's say you do 4 star collectings for Nurgle, which gets you 40 plague bearers, some Nurglings that you're not going to run,
sure,
and 12 flies.
Yeah.
Which realistically you're not going to run 12 flies, you're going to run 6.
Sure.
And 2 harbingers, which you're really not going to use. And so maybe you'll use a harbinger. You still need to buy a bunch. So you've bought 4 star collectings, and you have a lot more of your army to buy. You have to buy trees. You have to buy terrain. You have to buy summonable units. You have to buy a Guo. I hear what you're saying.
Yep.
Painting, they're pretty easy. It's base coats and dry brushing. But in order to have it really look nice, you need to do the boils separately, and so there's tons of detail on them. I don't know. I am less inclined to put Nurgle on this list, which is sad because that means that Chaos doesn't have anything that's good on that list. Mm-hmm. I think Nurgle, I would agree with you, Nurgle is the best of the Chaos gods.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say. And even if you did the mortals, let's say you buy 4 of their start collectings, you still have to you still have to buy a bunch of kits.
Yeah. Yep.
And so that would be my critique, is that you're just not getting as much as you could.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Nurgle's
so I think it's the weakest one on this list.
That's fair. I don't know that I disagree with that. Okay. And we'll get to the visual, and we can argue about placement, because I made a visual for all this at the end that I can share out. I'll save it as an image and tweet it, and people can argue over it.
Yeah.
But to me, the advantage to Nurgle is, one, it grabs the imagination of new players because it's full of gross stuff.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if you paint it badly, it often works better.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
You can be rusty and messy and throw goop all over it and hit them with Nurgle's Rot. And there's a bunch of contrast paints that work great for them and make them look really good.
Yep.
And, you know, yes, you're right. You do have to maybe buy a great unclean one. Maybe there's a couple other things you've got to purchase. I wouldn't buy 4 star collectings. That's the thing. Like, I wouldn't go that heavy in. But I think 2 star collectings is of the demon side, because that's going to give you 20 plague bearers, 6 flies. I agree, the Nurglings are just okay. Yeah, whatever. But it's fine. And good note, coach. But I mean, that's a good demon base to work from.
Right,
You
but
then
you
go
have
get
still
yourself
like 3/4 of your army you still have to buy.
Sure, which you could go, like, if you're starting out, maybe you want to bring in some of the Rotbringer stuff, so you could go
Sure.
get the Rotbringer, start collecting, and that's going to give you
Yep.
some good Blight Kings and things like that, which are still fine, especially as a new player. I mean, you're not trying to build the meta hard list as a new player. You're trying to build something functional and fun, right?
I understand that. Right.
And I think
But
that
my
that will do that.
maybe like my point is that the army is just so diffuse and it requires terrain, it requires summoning.
Mhm.
Like it at best it sits at the moderate.
Okay, that's
So
I understand where you're coming from, and I'll say it's definitely the lowest on this list. It also, although I don't think it's the most expensive on this list.
I would agree with that. I would
Okay.
agree with that.
All right. But I think if you're into chaos, it's the best chaos option. I think we can both agree on that.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
All right. Night Haunt. I mean, this one's a slam dunk, right?
So this is a weaker one on this list for me as well. Like
Okay.
the painting is super easy.
Agreed. Yep.
You can choose to do literally. I think this is the easiest to paint army in AoS.
Sure.
Because you can literally just spray it all white, douse it all with the Night Haunt technical neon green, dry brush it white again, and you're done. You're
Right.
literally done with the army.
Ta-da! Maybe you make the swords metal.
Maybe yes. If you're feeling saucy, you can make the swords metal.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to go another step farther and made all the cloaks, the ragged cloaks, real.
Yeah, sure.
But like the whole point being that like in general, it is not a difficult army to paint.
Mm-hmm.
It is weaker in the meta.
Sure.
It is very finicky to play.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is there's like lots of 12-inch overlapping circles. There's a lot of mobility. So there's a lot of growth in it as an army. But if you like, I think that it is one of the more difficult to do well. Like to have something that's fun and engaging. It doesn't feel like you're just bad all the time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so this is I would say it's a great like Johnny starter army.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think it's very beautiful. I think it is
Yep.
super easy to paint. I think it's
Yep.
I think its rules, you're right, they're not the easiest, but they're also not the hardest. Like, let's be honest with ourselves.
Right.
You know, yes, they have some challenges. Like, you do have auras and, you know, sort of bubbles you have to maintain. But there's also a fair amount of rules you get to just ignore with them because of their ethereal nature and because they have super high bravery and all sorts of things like that, right? It's like, you don't have to worry about rend. You don't have to worry about all-out defense. You know, these aren't things that matter to you.
You're like, what's that thing?
You took wounds, you roll a 5-up or a 4-up. That's it.
Right.
Like, there's no math.
And possibly a 6-up.
Yes.
Or a 5-up, depending on
Right.
depending on if your guy hit and later in the phase, everybody gets to like
there's a couple of weird things like that you're talking about, but if people are starting, they're gonna run some chain rasps. They're gonna and everything's flying. Thank you. That's a great one too. It's like mobility becomes very easy. You don't accidentally trap yourself in.
Ravioli, you'd ask what's a Johnny? It's a reference to psychographic profiles from Magic, and it's the type of player who really enjoys creative play opportunities and creative wins.
Like that is a
So
yes, like the very sort of people who appreciate technical complexity, skill challenging stuff. They want to
that's something
express
you can
something.
grow into.
Yeah.
Like it's an army that you can grow into, and there's layers of nuance and complexity that you can really like. The better you are, the better you'll learn how to pilot this thing and do very unusual things with the army.
Right.
So when we refer to Johnny, that's what we're referring to. Where Spike, you often hear us use the term Spike, which is those players who kind of want to win at all costs. And so it's often going to be a power for power's sake, even if it means that I'm hurting myself. If I'm losing, I will lose to win as a Spike, for example. That would be a very Spike thing to say. And then finally, Timmy's. Vince, go ahead and talk about Timmy's because
Timmy's they like to experience stuff. They like to experience things. That's what it is. They like big things and monsters, stuff like that. We did a whole show on it recently. If you're curious, this isn't the show, but if you're curious, we did a whole show on psychographic profiles. I would highly recommend going and checking it out. I really stand behind it as one of our better episodes we've done in a while. They're not all bangers, but this one was. So go check that out. I think Nighthaunt is an awesome Path to Glory army.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, one of the drawbacks that has been pointed out in the chat is that you have to paint a crap ton of models in Nighthaunt. I would say that that's not as true in the new edition. Yeah. Because of reinforcement points, it's not as bad as it used to be.
Sure.
You're no longer required to bring 3 blocks of or 2 blocks of 40.
Right. Yeah, you're not going to have 2 blocks of 40 chain rasps anymore. Yeah, it's just
right. You can't. Right.
Right. Yes. It is mathematically
30,
impossible.
30 is as much as you're getting now.
Yeah. So it's a decent number of models, but it's I don't know. It's when we've got a person in our group who plays Nighthaunt, and they seem to have a good time with it, and they're a pretty casual player. They're not new.
I love Nighthaunt,
but I think it can appeal to people at all levels. All right.
Yeah,
last one on the good list.
Yep.
And obviously all these are not created equal. That's as I said at the beginning, right? Okay. Sons of Behemoth. All right. Advantage of Sons. It is a 4 to 6 model army. It has a very simple play experience, and it is an easy to moderate paint. It's big. That's a challenge, right? Like, let's be honest, they're big. But if you get a big brush and you do some techniques, again, there are tutorials on there, stuff like that. I'm assuming if you're a new player, you might not have an airbrush. If you have an airbrush, got it, they're super easy. But, like, they are, play-wise, from a rules perspective, they are one of the most easy experiences you can have. Downside is, that is an expensive army. Like, if you were collecting a 4 mega army in the US, straight up, that's $800. Buying them all new at retail. Now, I hope you don't pay retail, but there's it is, right? Now, advantage to the Sons. There are a lot of alternative models out there that can stand in for the Sons of Behemoth, right? So that expensive part can be minimized, moderated, whatever you want to say, right? Because there are things like Kings of War makes a couple good alternate giants. The WizKid giants are really nice. There's some the like Nolzur's Marvelous Miniatures, whatever they are, whatever they're called. I don't know those, like the D&D giants. They make alternatives. There are a good number of 3D print giants out there that are on there. So like it's like you've got options. You don't have to spend $800 is what I would say. There are other things you can do. Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
Christopher Mallon says Nighthaunt are flimsy models. Yes, this is true. They are more finicky boys. That is true. Not a problem with the Sons. Chonky boys, though. Right. Easy, like very easy to transport around. You can just put them with the Sons. You can actually just strap them into your car seats. Put the seatbelt down. They're good to go. They can just ride with you when you get to the store. You just unbuckle all 4 of your giants and bring them in. Like you as though you got kids. Tom, you've got 4 kids. Same thing basically.
I have car seats. Yeah, just strap them all in.
You're good. Yep. Okay. So this is all my what I would call good list. And that's
as an aside, it was pointed out in the chat. Guardian of Souls, remarkably hard to come by affordable ones on eBay right now. They're all like $75 in the US.
Sure, sure. Or you can just take any of the other character ghosts and put a little candlestick in his hands and be like, "This is my guardian of souls."
Also
So,
true.
William Wright said, "Use the suns for the carpool lane." I mean, I think it should count. If you get pulled over, I'm not responsible. But if the cop writes you a ticket, I feel like they're not playing in the
You
spirit
just
of the
look
game.
at them and say, "It's just me and my sons in the car."
Yeah, exactly. Just me and my. It's good, Tom. It's good. I like it. Okay. Brian S. says, put the kids in the trunk, buckle in your gargants. That's exactly right. Now you've got the right idea. Okay. Next up, medium. Ready? Medium. This is the milk toast of starter armies, Tom. Here we go. My moderate armies list. Slaves to Darkness.
Sure.
Like, it's got a cool start collecting. Still the only place you can get the new Knights and Warriors for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, you could do like a couple boxes. You could do Archeon and a couple boxes of Vanguard and call it.
It's a lot of money.
It is.
Here's my problem with slaves.
Is it more than Suns though?
If you needed, you'd have to have 3 units of Vanguard, so that's $300 plus Archeon.
500.
Yeah,
you're cheaper, man.
Like
you got 300 more.
Cheaper than that. Sure.
You got 300 more than you can dump.
Totally
Let's
fair.
do this.
I would not wish painting Vanguard upon any new player. The problem with slaves, as I see it, and here's to me, this is more about what keeps them out of the good column. Slaves is huge. Yeah. There's like 1 million, billion units. Okay. They, it is oftentimes confusing to build lists in them. They have all sorts of weird rules like coalition units, and I can bring in all these other things. And what does this mean? Right?
Right. The layers of complexity.
Yeah, like Slaves has just a higher level of complexity. It's such a large force. And to actually, plus painting a lot of those models can actually be pretty challenging. Like, they're not an easy paint. There's a lot of models with trim. They have the sort of Chaos Marine problem. So whether you're talking Marauders are old and look terrible, but I mean, they're okay paints probably. But even any Chaos Warrior is still somewhat challenging because they're still fairly detailed. The new ones especially so. Chaos Knights, Vanguard, pick your thing. We can go around the force, right? It's not as though there's any slam dunkaroony easy paints in the force for the most part that you're going to really use as an army, right? They also have all these different Warcry warbands, and how am I supposed to use these, right? What are the value of these things? It's just
with all their FAQ, yeah.
There are Slaves has it's a great army. It's truly the classic look of Warhammer, as I say here, right? Like the Chaos Warrior is as classic as it gets. But it's a tough army to get into. Again, medium armies don't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means I want you to go into it with your eyes open, right? These are harder. Right? Doesn't mean these are bad. I didn't say these are bad armies for new players, did I? Does this slide say bad armies for new players?
They're just difficult.
It doesn't.
They're more difficult.
It says moderate.
Yes.
Correct. So the challenge with slaves is that, and why they're in the medium category, is because it's where there's both good and bad. Right?
Sure.
And there's just a lot, but it's a lot bigger army. It's a lot more confusing. There's a lot of different stuff. There's not as clear of a path through it. But Slaves is a super cool army. Don't get me wrong. It's at the top of my list here because I think it is a great army.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And I think that if you love that look of Warhammer, which to me Slaves of Darkness encapsulates in a big way, then it's a fine army to start with. Just be aware that it's going to be trickier. You're going to have more rules to navigate. It has a higher skill floor. Yeah. And you're going to need... it's going to take you more time painting. Bottom line. Seraphon. Yep.
I mean,
Hit me with your Seraphon thoughts, Tom.
do they have? Do they still have like all beast boxes, or is the start collecting the skinks and the knights?
They do have start collecting options. I believe they have two of them actually.
So they do have an all dinosaur one, like all
I
monster.
legitimately don't. I looked through all the start collectings just to prep for this. That's why I say they have start collecting options.
Right.
So I apologize, Tom. I didn't like record all of what the start collecting has. I just was looking to see like
Sure.
how interesting is it.
Like back when you could just buy the dinosaur. Like, sorry, this really does hinge on what their start collecting is for me. So they have a Saurus one and they have a Skinks one, but they don't have just a big dinosaurs one. Yeah, sorry. Nope. This one is I agree with your assessment. The range is old and their start collectings are all over the place.
Yeah, to me the challenge with Seraphon is a couple fold.
Yeah.
Now, big advantage for Seraphon. Super
Yep.
fun paints.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
Like these
Yep.
are honestly legit rad to paint for
Yeah.
a new painter.
Yep.
They all your basic techniques, washes, dry brushes, stuff like that. You're gonna do those, and you're gonna be like, "Wow, I am an amazing painter," right?
Yeah.
Because they're all
Yeah.
just scales and rough textures and stuff like that.
It is made to be dry brushed.
Yeah, like these are so good for new painters, and they're fun and they're cool. It's just like who doesn't want to paint dinosaurs, right?
Yep.
My challenge
or lizards riding dinosaurs.
or yeah, exactly, or dinosaurs riding dinosaurs. Part of the problem is a lot of this range is super old right now. Okay.
Yep.
The range is all over the shop.
Yep.
On age. Some of them being like truly ancient.
Yep.
The army itself is pretty complex as far as playstyle goes. Like, you have a set of general allegiance rules, then you picked Coalesce or Starborn, and it's just, what? And then there's all these different bonuses that get passed out, and it's just, it's a, it's a fairly complex play army, relying on a lot of cross buffs and, complicated reactions. Now, yes, there is like a simpler monster mash list. Like, that does exist in here, but you have to kind of, it's not hit you in the face.
Right, and that's what I was checking.
Like
I wanted to see if they had like a 2 dinosaur box, right?
Yeah, it was the Broken Realms box.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking about. Like, if they had that, then I would be way more open to this being viable. Or this being higher ranked. But
yeah. To me, it's like, its paint is way up here, like super easy, right?
Yeah.
Hugely in the positive. Its rules are like way down. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And its availability is right dead in the middle, if that makes sense. Like rules bottom, paint top, this in the middle averages out to in the middle. That's why it's a medium army, right? Because there are a lot of like 3D print options and alternate people out there who've made alternate lizardmen and dinosaur models and stuff like that. I mean, it's a lot of, let's be super frank, there is a lot of alternative models out on the market, right?
Yeah, totally.
But at the same time, the range is also very big. If you're sticking just to the GW models, as newer people tend to, it can be hard, difficult to collect these and so on. So yeah, that's what puts it right in the middle. Mm-hmm. So just know that it's got those 3 scores.
Yeah.
And then navigate accordingly. Ben Hewitt Long, totally off topic, but I have to ask, when is my boy Tyrion getting some love in AOS? We don't know. Wouldn't we all love to know? Sometime. Probably, I think if you ask the majority of the player base, Ben, they would say, hopefully not for a long time. Because Lumineth have gotten so much attention.
So true.
That I don't think anybody wants to see another thing called Lumineth for a long time. Caradron Overlords. This is in the medium for me.
Yep.
Do you think it belongs there, Tom? You're a KO man. Tell me about KO.
Largely easy to paint.
Yeah.
Because
more complicated than Stormcast, but there are a lot of metals. But they're more detailed and smaller. But still a lot of
You
metals.
need less models. Yep.
Yeah.
Decent star collecting box. Like you could buy 2 of those solidly and have a nice force. That 2 of those and some boats and you're done. I mean, my challenge is that KO is just a very difficult force to build and play well. Like, there's no... So for new players, it's just not where I would start. Because you're not playing the same game everybody else is playing.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be like, so this is how you play the game. But you don't obey any of those rules.
Sure.
Because you're going to play like this. And so I think Modern is probably safe. It's not a bad army.
Yep.
But it's just messy. Rules-wise, it's just messy. And again, they play on a knife edge the entire time. If you make one mistake, you lose your game.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that if you're a new player with KO and even like a moderate understanding of your book and you are going against other very new players, that's probably going to be a bad day for your opponent just because you have so much shooting. And
yes, like shooting is still strong, but the challenge is that like if anybody gets into you, you just blow up. Like you don't have the like the depth that we had when you could like 3-ups rerollable save on your ironclad.
Yeah, it's not a forgiving army. I'm with you. I get you.
No.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so my answer was it does have a good star collecting, like you mentioned. Vehicles can be a little tough for a new painter, but the figures overall are simple. The army isn't that large, right?
Yep.
That's another advantage. Like it isn't a force you're like, geez, what do I do? Hold on, I got 10 more units here I got to sort through, right?
Yep.
That's pretty contained force, right?
Yep.
But the book is challenging with rules. To me, that's what's holding it back big time. The rules are challenging. They're not overwhelming. There are worse, as I've said. We'll get to them on the next slide.
It's like you get to garrison your boats, and you're like, where are those rules?
Right. Yes. No disagreement. That's to me, it's almost completely the rules that landed them here on this page.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like understanding how the boats work, how you're like that kind of stuff. The fact that it is a very unforgiving army. I.e., like, I don't disagree at all with your point about defensiveness. You know, one of the great things about Stormcast is, like, they're tough enough that if you kind of screw up or misplay, you can generally take a hit and keep on playing, right? Because they're hard to remove. You might not do the most damage back, but you'll still feel like you're playing the game. You mess up with something like Caradron Overlords, and it's like, oops. Well, you're dead now.
Pick it up.
You know, sorry. Right?
Yep.
Okay. Agreed. Daughters of Cain. Decent start collecting.
Yep.
Decent. Not great, but decent. My rating system here is like decent, good, great, bad, you know, something like that.
Yep.
Trickier paint.
Yep. You got a lot of flesh.
You have a lot of flesh, but this time it's the opposite story of the ogres.
Right. Like all the flesh is ill-defined.
It's ill-defined female flesh, which is harder than big, muscly, ridiculously exaggerated, cartoonish ogre flesh. Right?
Right.
These are like tiny women in bikinis. Right?
Which, I mean, it has its own perks, but...
Sure. Everybody loves bikini girls with machine guns. Yeah, I understand.
Yep.
But it is a trickier paint. Now, at the same time, the new book is good. Solid options without being too complicated, right? Like you can, as we talked about, it's a very linear book.
Yep.
Right? When you read the book, you go, oh, okay, I like this thing, so I'm supposed to take this and this and this. Right? Like it is a very linear rules experience when you read through the book. You're like, okay, I like snakes. Cool, I need this snake lady boss. I'm going to take these snakes. I need to be in this snake city. Okay, got it. I understand. I take the snake things. Right? Everything is like clearly labeled. You know what I'm saying? You like snake things? Here's your snake stuff. You like the kill ladies, here's your kill lady stuff, right? Like, just whatever you want.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You want to play Kraith? Awesome. You can be bad and play Sisters of Slaughter.
your name is Chuck. Yes. Okay. So yeah, the one of the downsides of them is also expense. They are a pretty expensive army.
Yes, they are.
The start collecting does contain a lot of what you need. Like, straight up, it does. Okay.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
You can build a lot out of that thing. But it
Yep.
is an expensive army.
It is.
Whether it's your core troops that you're going for witch elves, or if you're going for sisters, or if you're going for the snakes, blood sisters or blood stalkers. You know, it's there's a significant investment you're gonna have to make there, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, there we go. Soulblight Gravelords. What do you think about my placement here on Modern? Okay, all right. Let me tell you why.
Like,
what's your?
I think it's problematic. Like, I think that. I mean, you could buy like 30 knights and some vampires.
I mean, if you could find Blood Knights, that's challenge number one is finding Blood Knights in the world.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, let's be real right now. But like there, it's a hard to find kit.
Right. And yeah, I think it's problematic. Because like some of your army is from Curse City. Yeah, there's just questions, right? Like of what goes where, how it fits. You know, it's all the questions that we had from Slaves to Darkness, with additional complications of availability of product.
Sure.
And but I think a lot of it writes itself. Like, oh, in here I'm supposed to have like wolf vamps, or in here I'm supposed to have this. It's lots of different textures on the models, and that's probably like the painting would be a problem.
Some yes, some no.
Yeah. Those are kind of my initial thoughts.
Okay. Let me tell you why. I place it here.
Okay.
So yes, depending on what you want, it is a decent sized army.
Yep.
But depending on what you want, it can be expensive or challenging, but it could also be super cheap. Okay.
Right.
What I mean by that is if your thing is like zombies and dire wolves and that kind of stuff, if you're going for that kind of thing, if that's what grabs your attention, that's going to actually be a super cheap army to pick up. I mean, zombies, not only the new GW zombie kits, which are actually out there and available, but I mean, there's a million zombies from every miniature manufacturer / 3D printer. There's like, you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a zombie, right? And zombies are the easiest paint in the world. Right? They are the speed painter's dream. There's a reason Ninjon did I'm going to paint 120 zombies in a day as a video.
Right.
And that's, by the way, that would be a lot of the army done right there. Right? It's not an insignificant number of points he just did.
Yep.
So, you know, and things like direwolves, again, even the new direwolves, easy paint. A lot of fur, a little bit of bone, things like that. Skeletons, pretty easy paint. Bone and rusty metal and some tattered cloaks. Like, okay. You know, your main stuff isn't actually hard. Right? Now, some of your character models can be a little more challenging. Like Blood Knights are pretty ornate. Some of the character models are fairly ornate, right? So, you know, there is some challenge here. But again, this is one of those armies that can also favor dirty painting. Right? Like, if you're new and you want to slap washes and dirt and, you know, mud and grime and stuff all over your people, yeah, okay. Right? Like, it'll feel appropriate. And you can cover a lot of sins with that kind of stuff. Just going nuts. Right? Blood, again, blood effects. Sure. Like, absolutely blood effects, man. Start going crazy. Just splatter that blood all over the place, right? So And I think that their rules are, in my mind, moderate but clear.
Sure.
They benefit in that they were basically made for 3.0, so they have a pretty strong alignment. And it's not as linear as Doc, but it feels pretty moderate. Like, my answer, Tom, is in every category, they are moderate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's fine.
Does that make sense? That's why I put them in
Yep.
medium. Paint
Yep.
is like
Yep.
medium, but not too bad. Purchasing, medium, but not too bad. Play, medium, but not too bad. Unlike Seraphon, which were like all over the shop, right?
Yeah.
These guys were just the most pitching right down the middle.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
That was my feeling as to why they belong here.
Okay.
Okay. Bad armies for new players. This is a long list. This is where a lot of things lie. All right. The poor armies. There's going to be a lot of people upset about this because I'm going to name their favorite army. This isn't, so let me say this first. This isn't a judgment on the quality of the army. Okay? Robert McMillan, it was Clay Beast Creations. This isn't a judgment on the quality of the army. This isn't a judgment on if the army's like bad overall. If you love it, I'm happy for it. As always, if someone is super stoked for an army and is going in with eyes wide open, then fine, they can pick any army. But I want to be transparent about, in the void, what are the hardest ones. And to me, all of these are bad. As your first army for a new player, first army. Before we get into the bad armies and I make everybody angry, don't forget to hit that like button. Go ahead and slam it, folks, before I piss you off talking about your armies. Okay. Cities. Not army number 1, Tom. How you feel about cities being on the list of bad stuff?
I mean, yes, because even though it can present a great play experience. Like, there's where to start.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start with 37 different units? And almost all of them old models that are likely to, like, that could be cut on the next round.
Sure.
And also an army that's likely to get an update in some way in the next 4 months. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nightmare of overlapping war scrolls.
Yeah.
Right.
That's like, what do I take for these two things that are almost identical?
Because you're going to flip through the book and read 4 war scrolls that seem all pretty similar and not have the nuance to understand why are these different things? Why do they cost different points? Which one do I actually need? Right?
Right.
It has all these different weird, wacky heroes. It has a lot of, like, it does have a lot of old models hidden throughout it. Yes, it has 2 different start collectings. I hear you, Howard Hooven. It's like, and yes, there are a lot of secondhand models around, but even the secondhand models aren't, a lot of these units aren't the easiest to paint in the world. Like, a lot of them are fairly detailed things. Classic elves and classic dwarves and classic Empire folks, which is, the sort of core of it, right?
Well, classic Wanderers, not even classic High Elves. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking Phoenix stuff, but sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Indeed.
They're
not the easiest to paint.
Right. Yeah. Like, it's also, like, tricky to understand the cities and what that means and how that generates what your army special rules are. Like, this is not a newbie-friendly army. It's just not.
No.
Okay.
I agree with that. Yep.
And there's just so many traps hidden in the rules. Like, there's so many straight-up traps. This is in the bad list, we're going to introduce the presence of traps, where you could really like something and collect a bunch of it, and it turns out to just be the worst play experience.
Like flagellants.
Sure.
Yeah, like I have 120 flagellants because I like flagellants. And they don't synergize with almost anything in the book.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it's tough. All right. I think we agree on that one. Fire Slayers.
Totally. Yep.
Just awful. Now, in the slight plus column, Go ahead. I'll wait.
They
You
have
give
a
me your slight
they have a
choices.
they have a nice start collecting box.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, it's okay. It's all right.
Like it's a decent start collecting box.
Mhm.
It's usable. Um, the they're pretty. They have some pretty well defined musculature. So like
Sure.
they take washes really nicely to the skin. So they're back to the ogre situation. Um,
I mean, they are
so
smaller, but yes.
they're smaller, but they're doing the same type of thing. You only basically have to buy 2 boxes, which is either the Oryx / Hearthguard box or the Start Collecting. Um, but they have a lot of heroes. They have like all the foot heroes, and which ones to use when are real. Is they have like 2 or 3 real foot units that are non-heroes, and then there's like 15 heroes.
Here's my argument. Yeah, sure. It's a slow, ponderous army that's rules are
Right.
like fairly opaque. And
Right.
like, yes, the collecting of them isn't terrible, though they can still be expensive to collect for a full army. I
They
would say,
can. They can. Yep.
especially depending on what you want to do.
Yep.
Like some of their kits are some of the higher priced infantry kits around. Right now, you don't need a
Yep.
huge number of them. Fair,
Right.
right? But they are some of the higher priced kits. They're up there with like daughters for their cost structure, right?
Yep.
And their play style is such that you really have to like it just doesn't play well into AoS 3.
Right.
And it's even understanding what units what and even in this small army can be challenging. And I think you're just honestly going to find it hard to like win games. It's going to be a frustrating experience to play them.
I don't disagree with that. Yep.
So, maybe they're the highest on this list because of the at least easiness to get into them.
Like because you could buy 4 Star Collectings, get 4 Magmadroths, right?
Sure.
And realistically, like run 3 units of 10
like 10 Volkites and 4 Magmadroths in
yep.
one of the lists. Yeah.
And well, no, yeah, and you still have another approximately like 300 points to spend, and you buy a couple boxes of Oryx, right? Like
Sure.
the shooters, and you run Lofnir. Like and like
Sure.
at that point, you have like a very viable army. You do have a father, a rune smiter, 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 or 3 units of your battle line that can stand on points. You can have a foot hero for teleporting, and then 10 shooters. Like that's not bad. Like, and that wouldn't be an expensive buy either, right?
It's not the cheapest, but it's not the worst. Sure.
No, like 4 getting started, and then 2 of the foot troops of the Oryx. I mean, and that's not a bad army. So, but I agree that it's not going to be like you're going to have to work to make it work.
Yeah, I don't. I think
Yeah.
paint wise, it's actually pretty tough. I think that again, not the worst. It's definitely not the worst. Okay.
I mean, what I'll say is my Fire Slayers paint up fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Out of everything that I paint, they paint fairly quickly.
And I just I think it's almost their rules that sink them the most. Fortunately, I think we're arguing over nothing because no one likes Fire Slayers. So I guess the 4 people who really like them,
the surveys suggest you're right in the less than 1% of players that play Fire Slayers.
Right. So what are we even talking about here? It's I guess if you're one of the extreme minority of players who thinks Fire Slayers are awesome,
Kenny, I still love Fire Slayers.
Right. It's like Kenny Lowell and you. I assume you guys have a club. It's probably scant meetings.
We have our own dice. There's even a measurement stick that's a forge key.
Oh, look at that! Isn't that cool?
Yeah. There is a private club.
There you go. Idneth Deepkin.
But yes,
let's move on. IDK, the Idneth Deepkin. Star collecting isn't great. Let me just say that.
Nope.
It's an expensive army to collect. Very challenging paint for many of the models. Like these guys are detailed. Yep. They have they're like weird sea creatures, weird colors. right? Uh, yes, a State of Kevin, yes, ogres were in the good category. So there you go.
Yep.
I like, and their playstyle is weird. It's weird. Their
Uh,
rules are
yeah.
weird,
It's
right?
not straightforward.
No,
Yeah, it's a
especially
very
like it's not just turn three spam. You're a command ability
right,
anymore or anything, right? Like it's not. It's also just like eel dot list probably doesn't work as well either. And if you did, that's also complicated.
right.
Um, I would I would love. Coach says he would put IDK in medium. I'd like the defense for that, Coach.
Uh, yeah, I don't see it. Like it's a complicated army to play. It's a difficult army to paint because it's like there's just no straightforward, easy way of painting it, and the rules, the way that it plays, is non-intuitive to AOS. Like it's not like you teach the people the game and say, okay, now you don't obey any of these rules. You do your own thing.
We're gonna talk about the king of that particular thing here in a moment. But yes, I agree with you.
Sure.
A lot of that is
Sure.
going on.
Yeah.
I see Brent from Rerolling Ones in the chat, probably taking offense at our Fire Slayers chat. I know he's a Fire Slayer fan, but there you go. Again, doesn't mean these armies are bad. It means they're not good for the new player. So
Right. They're not. Yeah. Exactly.
We're not rating the overall quality of the army. Both of my favorite armies are on this list. Are on the bad list. Okay.
Also true.
Yes.
They're just not good armies for new players.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to offer advice for.
Yep. Yeah, I just think IDK is really a rough road to start with.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine recommending it as a starting army.
I agree.
Okay.
Unless you just want a painting project.
Sure. If you were yes, good call. If you weren't actually a player, if you were just looking to get in, you're like, I just want to have a fun painting time. I paint a lot and I want to paint the coolest, prettiest models. All right, great. Totally different story. Right.
Yeah. Like they're in. You get Mr. Crab.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Beasts of Chaos. Lots of old models. Not not.
Now this could change in 2 months if they redo the book and redo the line.
Sure, which I'll be shocked if we actually get new models, but hey, we can only hope. Shocked is strong, but I would be surprised. How about that? There we go.
Yeah.
The start collecting is okay. It's not terrible. It's okay. But it does come with a big monster you don't need. So there's that.
I don't need them.
But it is a very challenging playstyle for new players with a very high skill floor. Now, it does have a more forgiving paint in general.
But you're going to paint a lot of models.
But you've got to paint a lot of models. Goodness gracious, yes.
You want to paint 160? Congratulations.
Yeah. It's like, how many Ungor and Bestigor are you willing to paint?
And they're old models.
The answer is all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're old models, so it's just not a lot of easy to. Yeah. Yep.
A lot of old models in the range.
So collecting is not easy. The models are it's bulk. Like you just have to paint lots and lots of models. The sculpts aren't too stellar.
Sure.
And the play style itself is difficult. So there's no positive.
It's another book with some serious traps in it too. Like some hardcore trap units right now.
Yeah. You're I bought starting collector. I want this big this big beast thing, and you're just like, aw.
Right.
I see you painted that because you bought it. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, and yes, as Tisarathi points out, also unfortunately, the Zangor component of this, the Tzeentch component of the army, are not easy to paint at all. Yep.
I bought a bunch of Zangor, and then I put the ones from Silver Tower together because I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this, and then I was like, nope. No, I'm not.
Right.
They're going to take 10 years to paint. Nope.
Right. Okay. I just lumped all of these together because they're all basically the same story. Tzeentch, Slaanesh, Khorne. The other 3 demon armies that aren't Nurgle. All bad to start with. They're all highly techy armies with challenging paints for different reasons across the 3. Okay?
Yep.
Tzeentch is overtly complicated and detailed. Slaanesh has way too many fiddly, ridiculous pieces and bits. And Khorne...
And cleaning and scraping mold lines.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the Hellflare. Yep.
Sure, the chariots. And Khorne is the king of brocades. Like he loves the whatever the ornate edges to his armor are, right? Like he's like
and reds are not the easiest paint color for new players.
sure. So and they all every one of these armies just has options out the yang that can be traps. Right?
Yep.
All three of these armies, again, it's sad because these are cool as and they're big parts of the Warhammer world. But all three of these armies are just, in my estimation, some of the absolute worst. Not the worst. That title's coming in a moment. But just some of the worst stuff you can start with. They're complicated. They're hard paints. They're often expensive too because they're big. Filigree, thank you. Yeah, that's what I was like. That is the word I was looking for. Brian S. Sorry, yes, he's the king of filigree. Thank you, Brian S. And it's just like I would not ask anybody to start these armies. They shouldn't be like that. Maybe Tzeentch should. Maybe Tzeentch should always be on this list. Okay.
Yeah. But Khorne definitely
shouldn't be. It should be on the good list.
Khorne should be the chaos good army.
It should be hanging out with its Destro bros up there in the world of easy to get into.
Right. Hey, I like to punch things. Great. I got an army for you.
Come on in. This is well, you found the right guy.
Yep.
Okay. But it's not. Yeah.
Nope.
Makes me sad. Again, that contains, one of my two favorite armies right there, but it's just true. Yep. Skaven, my other favorite army. Many old models, very out of date, very complex army to play, large number of trap choices, right? Yeah. It's a fantastic army.
It's a great army, a bad army to start with.
Correct. It's the most fair army in Warhammer right now. I stand behind that.
And guess what? Also the worst army, or one of the worst armies to start with.
Agreed. Yes. Kelly says, obviously, new players should start with these armies so that they can be forged in the crucible of hobby pain. Well, I don't know if we want to. Yeah, we'll lose too many, but I guess that's just the wheat being separated from the chaff, I suppose. So fair enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you want players to stop playing the game, you can start here.
Yeah, sure. If you want to get somebody into one army and then never have them play again, yeah, it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah, Skaven's just a complicated crisscrossing nightmare for a new player.
Yep. Gloomspite.
Yep. Challenge to collect. Very tricky army to play. Can often have extremely large numbers of models depending on what you build. But again, even understanding what you're supposed to build. Wait, how am I supposed to use these little angry beach balls? I think the beach balls are awesome. Can I just play all beach balls? Yes, you can.
So this is here's where I would qualify this statement though. I think that there are a couple exceptions to this. Like Gloomspite has there are some asterisks here in Gloomspite, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if you go all squigs, you're like, I want to do the beach balls, right?
Yep.
A lot of the problems simplify, and it's a fairly straightforward push things forward and hit it real hard.
Sure. Probably the same with Trogs, right?
And that's the other one. The other asterisk here is Trogoth, the troll list, which is just push things forward, very hefty army, very ogre-like.
Yep.
Those two sub factions of this army, I would bump up to moderate because they're going to be easy to paint, easy to play.
I agree with that actually. Yes. Gitz was a tough one for me to classify because when I thought about it mainly from the perspective of you're getting into it because you like goblins, right? And you want to play Gitz.
Right. But if you're getting in it because you like beach balls, if you like squigs,
right?
Or if you're getting in it because you like trolls, then actually, sure, these are probably moderate armies.
Agreed. It moves up to moderate if that's your thing. They have simpler play styles. They're much simpler paints. They're also easier to collect, by the by. Both of those things. Smaller forces, reasonable cost. So, my answer is Gitz is bad if you're goblin focused, but poor, I should say, if you're goblin focused, moderate if you're squig or troll focused. Yes.
Totally agree with that. And I will say though, like the getting started box is not helpful.
No, it's not.
Which is 3 trolls and a squig herd.
They keep throwing 3 trolls in as just like the bonus to everything they do. Every time they make a box, they're like, here's a bunch of squig stuff, 3 trolls.
It should have been 3 of the stone trolls, 3 of the fellwater, and a hero. If they did like hero troll, if they did that as your box, people would be all over it.
Sure.
As the all troll box.
Yeah.
Is that now you're back in the classification of like the Flesh Eater Court getting started box.
Yeah.
Where, it's all banging on all cylinders. And then there are traps like spiders.
Yeah, we got some spider defenders here in the chat, Tom.
I know, I love spiders, but
they would fall off of this list.
Yes.
Okay. Sylvaneth.
Oh.
Beautiful models. Very challenging playstyle. Way too much faction terrain. This army... What's that?
90% of your army is just Wildwood.
Sure.
Contrast paint.
Yeah, sure.
Right, like that's what my daughter did. She just did Wildwood contrast paint and then had like a light, like a dry, light tan wood that she dry brushed with, and it looks great.
So,
but if you're playing, it's a thing.
Very complicated playstyle. And the woods.
Which Sylvaneth woods rules do you need to use with them?
Exactly. You gotta purchase a bunch of woods, and they've had 5 different sets of rules in the last 3 months, and they're still not right. So, it's a shame. Sylvaneth are gorgeous, but
they are.
But and I agree with you. Paint wise, they fall on probably the.
I think they're easy. I honestly think that they're an easy category,
like upper easy, because there are some characters.
They are as easy, if not easier, than Stormcast. Because Stormcast have like the armor plus the shoulder pads plus the trim around the shoulder pads. Like there's a lot of different moving pieces that of smaller detail stuff that you're doing on Stormcast in order to really make it pop. But for these trees, you're like wood, leaves, weapon, done.
Fair. But the woods, man. The woods and the rules. It's the woods and the rules. It's what brings them down to this list.
I know. And I agree. My daughter's like, when are you going to show me how to play? And I'm like, I want you to actually play the game, sweetie.
Aaron M says they're easy to paint, pain to transport. That's probably not wrong.
Yep.
That too. Okay.
And they can be fiddly. They can break pretty easily as well.
Yeah.
With the branches.
Yeah, they have, but that alone wouldn't be a deal breaker.
Yep.
Deal breaker.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Now we come to, I think, the worst 2. These 2 have to be the absolute worst. Somehow worse than Skaven or Siege, both of which are bad. Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I don't even know what you're teaching them. Because you mentioned earlier, let me teach you the rules of the game. Now forget all that and learn a completely different thing. That's what OBR is. It's a great second army. Right? But its play style is often tricky and ponderous.
Yep.
Its rules are just not even 3.0. It's some other thing. It's just got its own rule set.
You know what it is? It's the Marshall Handbook from the end of 3.5 in D&D, which was functionally the 4th edition rules, but not fully refined 4th edition rules. Remember, the Book of Nine Swords? That's what it was. The Wuxia style,
Swords,
handbook at the end of 3rd edition D&D. That's exactly what it is, because it's like a glimpse of playtesting of the next edition without actually being that thing.
Right. Yes, 100% you're right. It's the Book of Nine Swords army. Yes. These things aren't the easiest to paint. Let me just say that. I know that there's a lot of bone, but it's not traditional skeletons. There's also a lot of armor.
Obvious. it's not obvious what's bone and what is not bone because it's all weirdly
Right.
like it's like merged and flowed into other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
There are
yes,
traps here.
and there are traps here too. Yes, 100%. Yes. So, yeah, I couldn't ever imagine the world where somebody said, "Hey, I'm new. I like these three armies," and one of them was OBR, and they said, "Which one should I pick?" And I told them OBR. I can't even imagine it. Unless they came to me and said, "I must play OBR or I will die." I'd be like, "Okay, man. I enjoy learning the game twice." But there you go. So, Chris said,
And then
Chris says, "Man, but Ninjon did that army a while back in a short time and made it in record time." Yeah, he did his army fast. I've seen it up close. He definitely did it fast. That's a shot. That's a shot at you, John. Hope you watch this later. Take that. Okay, I beat that army. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about the worst, the King of the Ring on Bad for New Players, Lumineth Realm Lords.
Yes, Lumina.
Yes, Lumineth Realm Lords. This is got to be, as I say here, the least new player friendly army ever made. Now, this is not a judgment on is Lumineth good or bad, like every other army we said here. Okay?
Right.
But holy crap. I don't think I could design a less new player friendly army if that was my design goal.
This
army.
This is Second Legacy, the army.
It's insane.
Like the complexity that this army packs into like 75 pages of spells, of hero phase actions, of single use resources, of command abilities, terrain, game breaking, table wide effects.
Hero phases that take 12 hours as you complicatedly work through all of the different triggers and things that you have to do in the right way.
And the sequence, right? And they're really finicky, fiddly models to paint.
Yes. They are they're
they
gorgeous.
Are not easy models to paint.
No, they're gorgeous, don't get me wrong. But like all high elves, they're very you have to paint. They should look. Yeah, don't paint your models however you want. Always, if you want super dirty ragged Lumineth, I completely support that. But ostensibly, if you're trying to paint the schemes that are in the book, they're a very detail, clean, difficult paint, right? So rules, paint, cost, everything, bad. Right.
And they don't even look like high elves.
It's that geez, Pete's like that matters. It's the King of In Addition. It is just it is the if I cannot again. This is the least new player friendly army they've ever made.
And do you know what the most offensive part about it is, though? There's no getting started box.
No, there's not. There's just that. I mean, you can still find that old Lumineth box, the expensive one that comes to the book or whatever. I'm saying
with the fake book, the book that doesn't even that isn't the army.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
That only has half the army in it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So just that's it. There it is. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Yep. That's the bottom. This should be the asymptote of complexity ever designed. If any book is ever worse than this, we've gone too far. This book is already arguably too far.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I'm amazed because I think I'm watching over here and the closed caption turned on, and I think it
Yep.
actually got the word asymptote correct, which is impressive.
I'm impressed.
All right, here's my little visual because of course we've got to have a fun visual to end the show with. Now I have here my little chart, my quad graph, my box graph of high cost to low cost on the X and easy
Yep.
to play to harder to play on the Y.
Okay.
All right. And so you can see how they sort of almost form a line here, and then there's
Yep.
this one that's just sitting way out here. This outlier army and Sons of Behemoth that's over here and very easy to play but much higher cost. Again, I am assuming you're buying the real models. You can get away much cheaper. Like this would crash through the floor if you just went and bought Kings of War Giants or something, right? Yes, and as somebody pointed out, the upper right is incredibly packed.
If you bought Reaper Bones Giants.
Sure. Yeah, there are options.
Yes.
There are options to get that army for under $200 or maybe under $100, probably. Honestly,
I'll take that challenge. I think we can get under 50 with Reapers.
it's possible. So yeah, like this is kind of how all of that works out. And as you can see, like, by the way, you mentioned Maggotkin. You talked about the cost. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's why it's up here. You notice out of the. Notice how it's kind of overlapping with slaves, which to me was kind of the best of the moderate group. Because I kind of went back and forth there, right?
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
And so I tried to really kind of visually graph this out, just to give people an idea of kind of how I saw these things, as far as cost goes. Because again, it's like things like Gits coming down here lower in the cost, and it's not as hard to play as some of these other things, right? But again, I'm taking Gits as a whole. If you, as you mentioned, if we said, okay, we're just going to count the, the Maws of Jork, then it would scoot this way pretty hard.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So.
I think it's good.
There you go. That's my little visual. I'll try to save this. I'll try to remember to save this into a picture and tweet this out tomorrow so that people can have it and argue over it and tell me what you think. I look forward to seeing the conversation. If you're not already following me on Twitter, it's at Warhammer Weekly. It's super easy. Check it out. It's in the description. And then you can join in the fun and the conversation. Tom, anything we didn't cover? This brings us to the end. Good stuff.
No, I think we've hit everything, right?
Well, yeah, so IT said, I don't know how you can call cities pricey when it's the most proxy third-party friendly army or secondhand army. Yeah, that's why it's not as high up. I mean, it's okay here. Again, I'm assuming you're mostly, like, to do this, to do this chart, I had to kind of assume you're buying GW stuff.
Right.
Now, you're right that there is a pretty solid proliferation of, like, secondhand market. So, maybe cities should be coming down, like, a little. Like, maybe they should be more down here. Because that's still GW models. It's on eBay. That's fair. Like, I get that.
I mean, at that point, you could be like, I'll buy a 3D printer and just print all my models.
Sure. It's tough. Legion of the First Prince, not a real army. Those words should never be uttered to a new player. Ever.
Right.
Just never. Shut your mouth.
No.
You do not explain that army exists. It should not exist for a new player in their mental landscape.
So let me get this straight. For demons, 3 of the 4 armies are already on difficult.
Right.
And the question is, where does the army fit that takes 3 of the 4 of those, smashes them all together?
Doesn't have any single book or anything to reference it other than
and it's a mythical entry in some narrative book that doesn't have the core rules for that army.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. No. Definitely no.
Yeah, that's not on the page. It wasn't even on the bad page, and there are reasons for that.
Yeah. Yeah, Coach said if we're talking new players, would you be considering third party or 3D printing or secondhand? Probably. Like, it's tough. You know, it's tough to say what people's tolerance for
It
this stuff
depends on
are.
where you're playing as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
In the States, you can get away with it, but in the UK, from what I've heard, like third party models are less tolerated.
yeah. I don't know. It's like it's gonna a lot of these things as time goes on. Frankly, almost all these armies now have 3D printing options, so it would probably
Yes.
affect everything evenly. Like
Yeah.
you can find 3D printed versions of almost everything that is made in a Warhammer army now because people know there's money in creating STL files of, you know, not Skaven or not vampires or not,
Flesh eater courts.
flesh eater courts. Yeah, exactly. So it would, if anything, it would have just a universal depression on the cost, right?
Right.
So, now the availability in the secondhand market, that's going to be a lot different, right? Because very new armies that have just a lot of new sculpts are going to be much less available on the secondhand market than something with than like Lumineth or something, right? Yeah. So that could have some actual real differences there. And I'm not sure how I'd factor that in.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Sounds like a different show.
Yeah, indeed. That would be an interesting show. Like availability on the secondhand market. Other places to get your figs. That's probably what we do. Yeah. Don't buy new. Why wouldn't that be a fun topic? All right. Well, at any rate, thank you all out there for watching. I hope this is helpful. If you're a new person who's made it all the way here, hey, awesome. I hope this helped. If you're out there watching and you have new players in your group or something like that who's thinking about getting into it, share this with them. We wanted to make this a resource that hopefully explains kind of the different armies and how easy they are to get into so they can set that in their heads. So I hope this was helpful as a sort of resource for everybody. And for all of you, I hope it was at least fun. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe, help us get to the very important milestone that's coming up on the channel. And as always, I thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday.